K-Tron flag is up there.
Thank you.
We're trying to just keep moving it on. Yes,
That's the same place.
it was. Do it twice in a row. Eight stamp. It's when you do a document production, you have to number it.
By midnight.
Would you be able to sell, please?
Right.
Is there an offer? So we may not even have it now.
Oh, really?
I know, I know it's smart. Man, that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Josh, would you? Yeah.
I still remember the Trustees.
I know it's what you're actually.
I like making you never know, you know. I have that one.
Late tamper is, I can tell you.
Terry, do you have the batteries for this by any chance?
I'm sorry, batteries, yes.
I think so. Well, we should have, but you have it on.
Yeah, but I watched my father. Does that count? Sure. You'll have to reset the time of day.
Okay, we'll, it hasn't given me the warning or anything like that, so we'll just go with it and we'll do it later.
I'm sure you have.
You have low batteries, you gotta go. Let's do quick motion. It's the new power play, get it? I was just telling her, I'm stuck on the guy, the subway comedian, the one that in subway cars was doing stand-up comedy with really bad dad jokes and stuff like that. I find him hilarious. I gotta show you. Exactly. You and I, I'm rolling. People in the subway cars like. Oh gosh.
How sold out do you think those things are?
I don't have these yet. Do you see it?
No, I'm just buy a couple.
That's what I really need. I just want to make sure when it needs to go, that when there's the factors. And, you know, so I don't know.
I hate you for making me laugh at that.
I gotta figure that out. You can't have your own chair.
Well, that, I think you can for
To the orchestra.
We really need some flesh.
Can they change their seating?
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance being led by Ray Otten.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And welcome to the second ordinary meeting for the Village Board of Trustees. March 24th, 2025, or March, I should say. Let us go to our minutes portion here. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the March 10th, 2025 meeting be approved? Trustee Fondainza, trustee Price Bush, discussion.
Yeah, I have a concern, because the minutes again didn't have the statement that I made at the last meeting. So it's been a couple times now that statements that have been made have not been attached to the minutes or included on the website, you know, as the policy stipulates. So I'm just wondering, can you help me understand, Frank or anybody, just what are the challenges with implementing the policy of attaching statements to
I
minutes?
think you don't provide them until well after the meeting, so at that point, like, provide them the night of, and I think it would be,
Is that what you think?
I think so,
So-
yeah.
Well, they should be anyway, because
there's
you
no
could
way
be,
to verify.
well, yeah, you could be altering your statement. It's supposed to be contemporaneous ultimately, so that we're not having to go track what you did say versus what's on the paper at that point.
All right, well, I appreciate your explaining your understanding of the policy, because what's written in the policy, and I'll just read it for you, is all written statements read at a board meeting and submitted to the clerk within 10 days of the board meeting will be attached to the minutes as part of the official recording record of the meeting. So what I do is I don't wait the 10 days, because I remember you saying, Frank, that 10 days really would put pressure on the clerk to get it in. So I sent it in Wednesday after the meeting, so the meeting was the 10th. I sent it in on a Wednesday,
They are
March
attached.
12th.
Hold on, let's let her just finish. And
What?
She was saying something, but I'm letting you finish, go finish.
So that should be plenty of time. And then I sent a reminder last Wednesday on the 19th, also reminding you that I'd like the statements attached to the minutes. So it's always been the policy that you don't have to submit them. In fact, one reason I don't submit them the night of is because sometimes I may go off text in the middle of something, and I want to make sure that the statement that I send in is exactly what I said. And usually it is exactly what I said, and it was last time. But I actually do make sure that what I actually said is the statement that I submit. And so that's why, and I go back and I listen to myself. So that's why I don't send it in exactly then, because there's back and forth and whatnot. There could be some variation. So, sending it in 2 days after should be plenty of time.
You do have a statement in the attachments here.
What?
You do have a statement in the attachments this week.
It's in the attachments, which is not where it belongs, in my opinion, because the attachments are for this meeting, and that statement belongs with the minutes of the last. The policy is pretty clear. It says attached to the minutes, not in the attachments for this meeting. Nobody's looking for it there. Also, I noticed that the statements are not being, it also says the minutes and these statements will be posted together on the village website. So that's also not happening. So it'd be great to start doing that, for the policy. This is a policy you also voted for, Bernadette. You voted in affirmative for this, and it did say 10 days, but I'm not gonna wait the 10 days. But I would appreciate it if we did, adhere to that policy so that our statements could be in the public record as such. And so if there's any other issues involved, I'd like to just know what they are.
I think it would be wise to try to get it to Terry night of. We have folks that do bring them night of. I think we can continue to talk about it. Let's attach her for this one, but if we could come up with a better system where we're not, because here's the thing, Terry's trying to provide a accurate representation, even though it's truncated, of what the meeting is. And the timeliness about what the staff have to do dealing with the public, dealing with us and all that, I just think it would make it a smoother process if it's provided the evening of. And again, there's always the backup of our Zoom recordings, which are available on YouTube. So if you think you can make an effort, and I hear you about the 10 days, but I also don't think that's fair for staff, you know, so.
Well, you voted for it originally, but I agree, I'm
We
perfectly
vote for things
fine.
that we don't fully agree with
Yeah,
all the
I'm
time,
perfectly,
so.
and I agree, I'm perfectly fine not doing it 10 days. And my, in trying to show consideration about the timing is why I send it in within a couple days of the meeting. I may not have it printed out, maybe I'm working on it to the last minute. I may not have it available the night of the meeting, and frankly, I don't think it's necessary because minutes aren't going to be finished. Plus, all it requires is attaching. There's no other work involved. It's not as if more has to happen. So within a couple days should be fine. Even 10 days, if I ever waited 10 days, you know, there's a full 2 weeks between meetings. But I'm never gonna wait 10 days. But the policy as it exists is 10 days. I never do that. So I would appreciate it that, given the policy we have and given that I'm sending these things in within a couple days of the meeting, that they are attached to the minutes, and then also they should be on the website. So after the minutes are approved, and of course there's no timing issue with actually including them with the minutes on the website, that should happen. And if it can't happen, I'd like to know why that couldn't happen.
I would like to know why you can't bring this up in an email prior to the meeting, because we just wasted 6 minutes, 7 minutes of Villagers' time on something that could have been handled easily behind the scenes right now.
Well, the reason I bring it up in public is because I brought it up repeatedly in emails. In fact, I just indicated when I sent it in on 3/12, I reminded people to please attach to the minutes. And then I sent another email on Wednesday, 3/19, asking to attach it to the minutes.
So you
Didn't
want to
happen.
publicly shame
Didn't
the
ha-
clerk, is
so-
that where you're going with
No,
that?
so that didn't happen, plus previous meetings, actually the previous meetings I asked, I also sent emails, bring it up. So it doesn't seem to be addressed via email, and I think it's important that the public know that this should happen, that when they submit a statement, like another person's statement was all submitted, they should know why is their statement not being attached to the minutes per the policy, and they won't know unless we talk about it in a public meeting. But one thing I can assure you is, one thing I can assure you is that if this repeatedly doesn't happen, I'm just gonna have to repeatedly bring it up. If it happens, I don't bring it up. If we follow the policy, I don't need to bring it up. I'd rather not. I'd rather just vote for the minutes. But every time this happens, I gotta bring it up.
So, let's do it for tonight, but here's the thing, I think we need to revisit, I don't think it's reasonable. I think if you're submitting a statement the night of, you should provide it the night of. So we need to revisit that, and yes, you're right, currently that's our policy, but I don't think that makes sense for staff and for this board, so.
Well, why not the night after? What would be the difference?
Why can't you submit it?
This-
Maybe
I
I'm
don't
changing it,
understand that.
maybe I haven't printed it out.
Folks, I'm
Well, then it
going
doesn't
to
matter.
bring us back to the actual resolution or motion that's in front of us, which is whether or not to approve the minutes from March 10th, 2025. Are you accepting any kind of amendment? Go ahead and
Yes,
state what the amendment is.
it would be to attach the statement for this one, but I do think we need to revisit that, so it's not a issue every time.
And Marilyn Stevens also has a
Susan.
statement to that.
Can I, thank you. Mary, do you accept the amendment?
I do.
There we go. So now that is a revised motion, all in favor?
Aye.
And
Opposed? Motion carries.
I still would like a assurance that these statements, so they're past statements that, from 2 meetings ago, that should appear on the website. And I'd like to make sure that appears on the website with the minutes per the policy.
We are gonna go by what's approved by the board. What you just got approved by the board was the addition of your statement.
Right now, this is separate. The motion, the policy talks about attaching to the minutes, and there's another sentence that says the minutes and these statements will be posted together on the village website. So even if it's not attached, past statements have not been attached as they should have been, they should
I
be on
think
the
we've
website
already
together.
just talked about, we're gonna be probably revisiting this in the near future in a rules procedure discussion.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be following existing policy as it stands today. So, so I'm gonna resubmit the statement I sent 2 meetings ago, and the request is going to be that it be posted with the minutes on the website per the existing policy.
Presentations are unscheduled. Public comment on agenda items only. That's 3 minutes per speaker on agenda items listed. And if you're on Zoom, now would be a great time to raise your hand if you would like to speak on an agenda item. Marilyn?
Thank you.
Marilyn Stevenson, 45 West High Street. I guess I'm that other person. We didn't coordinate this, but at the last trustees meeting, only part of my statement was actually included in the meeting minutes. And so I'm just going to quickly say that the two parts that are missing were the zoning advisory committee's meeting schedule for the remainder of our time period in 2025. That was not included. And the flyer for the public rezoning workshop, April 3rd, 2025, 7 to 9 p.m. at 50 West High Street. And despite the fact that I did give it to the clerk through the only portal I have access to, which is the plexiglass portal here, I did that night. It did not show up, and only 2 pages of my report, which I do appreciate you including that, that was included.
Marilyn, just to not interrupt you and not against your time, we made the decision because the advertisement you gave was not an official village advertisement, though it was portraying to be such, and so we had to make a judgment call on that one. And the schedule is also not a village approved schedule as well, so that's why we had to make a decision on that. Your statement, as you said, was your statement, that is fine, so that's why we have to sort of parse through that.
Well, it's unfortunate that the village is fraudulently ignoring what the zoning advisory committee is doing, but be that as it may. My second comment is on the timeline for the proposed zoning, which is on the agenda here for tonight's discussion. I'll just make a comment on that proposed zoning code timeline as I know it. In light of the fact that the code was posted only just a week ago, including the map, and changes were made to the zoning map the second day, one day after it was posted to the village website. You know, I really think there needs to be more transparency and more flexibility in the timeline for the public review of the zoning code. So in light of that change, and who knows, there may be more changes that we didn't catch. You know, I think it's important to reconsider your decision, village trustees, and to actually extend that April 22nd deadline, which right now is totally unreasonable for the public to be able to review the proposed code, review the proposed edited, altered map, and have an opportunity after the public workshop to actually absorb and analyze what the consultant has said. I think it's more important that you consider pushing that deadline back into May. It's only the more transparent way to conduct this. And although I appreciate the pink signs you put out, weren't put out by the deadline I suggested, but you really need to give the public more time. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes.
John?
If you could hand that to the clerk, I'd appreciate it.
John Colby, 132 Bath Street. I've had an opportunity to look at most of, but not yet, all of the proposed zoning code, and it is an extremely problematic document. And speaking in reference to your timeline, this particular document encourages or does permits tear downs almost every time you look at it. Taking, for instance, the lower part of Milton Avenue and putting it in the same category as the stores, allowing hotels or motels to be built, also with the large parking requirements in that area. You can very easily say goodbye to all those residential structures in the lower part of Milton Avenue. Absolutely should not be placed in that. You'll have the housing in the northern end of town, which is basically the housing that was built, treated exactly the same way as the housing in the south end of town, which when that was built, that was the white collar housing. Again, very completely different type of uses. The master plan committee wanted a zoning law that was going to be able to be enforced. And the enforcement mechanisms that would be required to make this work, and also the confusion that it would create amongst the various zones, is such that it would be very expensive to enforce. Therefore, it's not likely to be enforced, just like the old zoning law. They have the same problems of the residents taking what they wish to do and just doing it. The village doesn't have the ability to enforce it, and we just have essentially mishmash for zoning again. Something that the master plan wanted to avoid. This law does not do that. As an example, take the signage requirements. Very, very detailed. Interestingly enough, if you can look at the picture that has a sign in front of the building that says that sign is not supposed to be above the beginning of the second floor. It's supposed to be stopped at the first floor. The picture is above the first floor. Even example that it shows is doesn't follow the statute, what the language shows. The idea of the suburban zoning, okay, you've got the residential zoning and suburban zoning. What's in the suburban zoning? The fairgrounds. That puts an undue burden on the agricultural society. There's just almost every place you look in this particular law, there are major, major problems. It's at the point where if one really studies it, it should start from scratch. So whatever timeline you have,
10
I
seconds,
think you
John.
ought to have a lot of time before it really comes to the village board for decision.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Jerry?
Jared Nicolucci, 24 Chapman Street. Just a few notes on the zoning timeline as well. First, the rushed schedule that's now being implemented, a schedule that would leave critical components out of the code, forcing them to be addressed through separate local laws based on the announcements from last meeting. That rush schedule was determined without any input from the Zoning Advisory Committee. No deliberations were done publicly for public awareness, and aside from a handful of people saying we need to get it done as quickly as possible, there seems to be no other urgency. In fact, some of those same people who are seeking urgency now initially sought to slow the ZAC down. Back in November of 2023, as the ZAC was beginning to meet regularly, some of these people were saying that the ZAC needed an additional 3 to 4 months before engaging with a consultant, with at least one of those individuals suggesting we don't need a consultant in this process at all. The urgency we are being force-fed does not reflect the actual work and process of the past 16 months. For something as important as rezoning, we should not be implementing arbitrary deadlines that will rush this process, particularly when it puts the alignment with our village's vision outlined in the comprehensive plan at risk. The undermining of the ZAC is itself contributing to this manufactured urgency. On January 16th, the ZAC, with a full quorum, agreed to use a Google form that would simplify feedback submissions from the public. The chair reviewed the form and shared his approval. The form has been available in our shared space for all of the members to review. This form is a simple way to submit and collect feedback, since the form is open to the public and they would only need to click a link and enter their information. The automated spreadsheet it populates can be filtered, allowing the ZAC to easily collate the feedback. This approach, again, was supported by the entire ZAC and the consultant. Why remove a simple feedback process that a quorum approved and replace it with a manual task, creating additional workload for village staff? How does that ensure efficient use of village resources? When I asked why we aren't using this form, neither the mayor nor the chair responded. I'd like an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mike?
Good evening, thank you. Mike Iacolucci, 3 Encore Drive. Just a quick question, completely separate issue. Motion 7 H relating to the Housing Choice Voucher Program. I have very limited familiarity with this. From looking at the application that was attached to the meeting information, it looks like there are 162 vouchers available for the year beginning October 1, which is wonderful. It appears to me, and I'd like to be corrected if this is not true, that there are no public housing units involved in this. It's all private, extended for rental to the community. So, if possible, I would just like to know, is this the first year? Will October 1, 2025 kick off the first year? If not, what has been the level of participation previously, prior to October 1st? And do you know how many housing units are going to be made available for these up to 162 vouchers? Thank you.
Who else? Seeing no hands. I should add, by the way, there are two walk-ons, we'll label them as Q and R here. Q is to approve George Long for the membership on the Committee on the Arts, and it was Q. R will be the approval of Cousins Seafood for the food truck peddler's permit for them, and that was circulated to the board this morning. We would not put it up because of the amount of information it's on it. We would have to redact that largely. So they will be looking to sell out of the Generations parking lot as a food truck. So they did are trying to obtain a peddler's permit. So adding those two, anybody have a comment on those two concepts of motions upcoming? Seeing none, let us move. No consent agenda tonight. Can I get a motion that all funds currently with Generations Bank be moved to our New York class accounts?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
Accepted.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion. This is a twofold move here, interest rate reasons, and also Generations Bank just isn't really giving us kind of the bang for the buck of having as much money as we have in there. I think it's well in excess of $1 million in Generations Bank, so New York class will provide a much better interest rate environment for our money. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the DPW be authorized to expend the amount of $3,299.99, cross out for a leak detector, that should read for an air compressor? Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
Trustee Raymond, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the DPW be authorized to expend the amount of $3,257.36 for a leak detector?
Make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
Trustee Baskin, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the DPW be authorized to expend the amount of $2,630 for a plate tamper?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin,
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
Is that
Go ahead.
to replace, or is it a new purchase?
I think it's a new purchase. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the DPW be allowed to expend $1,100 on a JSIC plasma digital dual input 45 amp plasma cutter from J&R Welding?
I make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
I'll give it to Trustee Raymond this time. Discussion, besides the fact I'm gonna retire and become a game show announcer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that Kerry Scribner be authorized to conduct an anti-drug procession at the intersection of Route 50 and Prospect Street on April 12th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m.?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
Just-
So,
oh,
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ben.
No, I have a question. What are you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, my heart is with her family, and, we understand.
To give the specific, Ben, because I think this is what you're gonna ask, is about the drug kratom, which her son Nick, I believe it is, passed away from apparent abuse or overuse of it. Ultimately, I guess people are not aware of the addictive nature of the substance, and so she's trying to bring awareness. She actually spoke at the town Milton meeting recently. I watched their monthly meeting, and she spoke there. also gonna be reaching out, on her behalf to the Ballston Spa Central School District, see if they'll allow her to speak at a Board of Education meeting upcoming.
Great. And when we say procession, we mean basically they'll stand with signs, or is there a
They're gonna
route,
follow
or-
the parade, rules that we had passed, what was it, last year, I think.
But are they basically in an area, they're moving somewhere?
They're not supposed to block sidewalks, so there
Right.
should be some level of movement in those scenarios, too.
But they don't have like a route where they're going from one place to
I
another?
don't believe so, I think they just wanna be in that, spot.
Right, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the closure of Grove Street behind the Malta Avenue Elementary School's building from 9:30 a.m. to 11:15 a.m. on Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, for an EMS presentation? Trustee Fandesa,
One second.
trustee Baskin, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the following resolution related to the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program PHA Plan for 2025, and it reads as follows. Resolution adopting the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program PHA Plan for 2025, whereas the Village of Ballston Spa operates a Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and whereas the Village of Ballston Spa is required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to prepare and adopt a written PHA plan that establishes local policies for administration of the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program in accordance with regulations of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And whereas the Village Board of the Village of Ballston Spa has caused a written PHA plan to be prepared establishing local policies for administration of the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program in accordance with the regulations of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and has reviewed such written plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of the Village of Ballston Spa hereby adopts the 5-year PHA plan starting in 2025 for operation of the Village of Ballston Spa Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Make the motion.
I'm gonna give it to trustee Fandesa. I'll give you the second, Ben, discussion. This is not the start of the program, this is a renewal that's required by us, just to answer the question from earlier.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is this is an ongoing thing, and people, I think, are responsible for, identifying housing for themselves. There is no, like, housing allocated or provided. So they can take this voucher and go, look for available rental units.
We've had a discussion recently, a couple of years ago, I think it was, with some of the principals behind our vouchers, that we do have an underuse in the village, that they were trying to figure out ways to perhaps broaden the availability or attach it to the school district or something along those lines. So they continue to look into those possibilities because we are at an underuse right now in the village.
Really? So we're not using all 162?
I don't believe, as a couple of years ago, we were definitely under, and that was the discussion to how to broaden the reach.
I'm shocked. I worked in Schenectady a few years ago, and when they had a voucher problem, the line was out the door and the waiting list was for years and years.
Not all communities were built equally in that respect, I guess.
Yeah.
It's what it is. But anyway, with respect to this motion and resolution, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. If it's required to be shown in terms of roll call, it was unanimous, correct? Unanimous. Can I get a motion to approve the estimate provided by JH Property Services for Public Works Services to be performed related to Wiswall Park walkways and pavilion base for a total of $32,950 and authorizing the mayor to execute any related paperwork?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion.
So, we had some online correspondence during the day here. I'm really not sure why we're splitting out pieces of this project, and why aren't we just developing a final set of plans and then putting it out to bid in an RFP, so that a GC would bid on it and we would have a project manager that would coordinate this and actually have to expedite it on time and on budget. So I understand that we're having DPW do some of the work, and I think we're providing materials, but all that could have been written into an RFP anyways.
We aren't at a price level that requires an RFP first off.
Well, some of the bids were actually at for this very
Correct,
project.
but when you have one that's under, it basically becomes determinate unless we
I
reject the bid.
understand that, but why isn't this just part of a whole park project instead of ripping out pieces of it, which will end up costing more money.
Well, first off, let me introduce John Shea, who is the new president of the BSBPA, joining us tonight, and some other members of the BSBPA who are going to be relying on this park's viability come June 1st or thereabouts to be utilizing it for the farmers market and for movies and for other uses. We are right now at March 24th. We need to get this work done, and we have worked with Park and Tree Board and Caitlin specifically to split the work into 2 phases. What would be able to be done in this year before the spring expired, basically June 1st, and then the remainder of items that were identified by Studio A in the plan, starting again in the fall when things shut down basically for normal usage of Wiswall Park into the spring of next year, so that we were done with Wiswall Park renovations according to the plan by June 1st of 2026, all taking into account the needs of BSBPA among others out there that want to utilize the park. This includes the following aspects of 2025 that are not so large that can't be bitten off by the village itself to manage in this capacity with DPW assisting, etc. There's going to be a survey performed to find center point and key points for the walkway that we've all seen. The sonotube locations will also be located by the surveyor and will be installed simultaneous with the walkway. So then it will be a question of getting the walkway and the sonotubes installed. We are getting bids finalized for sodding the entirety of the park, and I'm looking to probably charge back the folks that did the sewer work because of the way they left the park for the, at least some of the, or most of the soil and turf that we're gonna have to put in the situation. The fountain, which we found through J. White Creations, will be hopefully done by the 15th of May, although you might do some polishing in place and a couple other things by June 1st for that. We're working with Labella for an electrical plan to hand over to grid because we need the 3-phase that already runs there to be coming down to the panel that exists in Wiswall Park, and that's something that National Grid's gonna have to take care of anyway. We're going to have a bid proposal in this for a pavilion that will probably be in excess of $60,000 for the pavilion because of size and type. And so that will require an RFP, and you had the bid package for that was sent to you via the attachments and then resent today because in case you can open it for whatever reason. So those are the things, also tree installation in the back wall area, and actually JH has volunteered to dig holes while they're out there doing other work for free to help enable the Park and Tree Board to put the trees in. So that list of items is not so overwhelming that the village can't undertake it as essentially a quasi-GC approach and getting a bunch of subs in to handle those things.
Okay, I beg to differ. There's
Sorry,
professionals for a reason. I've done project management for 15 years and I've been involved on project another 10 years prior to that. And this is not how you do things. Also, we don't even have a set of stamp plans. So there's literally, we are proceeding without any protections regarding liability. If there's a design flaw, if there was a mistake in specifications, I went through the project manual. There's actually no reference to standard specifications of building code or whatsoever. They're literally not ready.
And it's
For
an
anything.
exterior open-ended pavilion, Sean.
Again, you have to conform to certain building code specifications. The PSI of the piers of the concrete, the amount of slump when it's poured. There's all specifications that have to be clearly listed, and they're not even referenced. So these things aren't ready for prime time whatsoever. This could easily be wrapped in everything you said there is not a relevant reason for not wrapping it in.
You tell these folks that on June 1st the park's gonna be unusable.
I don't see why the park's gonna be unusable.
It's
It
March
was
24th, Sean.
usable last year, wasn't it?
Sean, it takes how many days to do an RFP?
It was usable last year, and Belmont was here last year.
Have you been in the park?
Well, it can be cleaned up and sodded and grassed. First of all, how are you gonna do the electrical when you've already put things at grade in?
It's
And-
part of the plan with respect to, there's conduit underneath the walks.
So you're gonna put the walks in, then tear up the walks and put the conduit in?
No, there's conduit scheduled for under the walks.
So that has to be done prior, so why isn't there a bid for the electrical first and then the walks? You see the problems here?
Grid has to install the electrical, they are the ones that are gonna
They
take the
just have to
three-phase
install
down.
the service, the actual conduit that goes underneath, and you don't need three
The
phase.
the second phase of the plan is also the lighting in the main electrical carrying plan, portion of the plan, Sean.
You're gonna have to tear up all the pavers to put conduit.
No, you wouldn't. The conduit is going to be put in with the pavers as a 2-inch wide conduit based on what the needs were. This was discussed. in
Well,
depth
I
in the
don't
field.
see anywhere on the plan, again, there was no plan given to me with elevations of the pavers. There's no specifications as to the amount of compaction to the crusher run. There's no how the bricks are gonna be laid. I mean, there's documentation for all of this that is part of a contract. And when you piecemeal this out, you don't get those assurances, that it's going to follow standard specifications, whatever they may be. If they're architectural specifications, if they're building code specifications, I just think this is a very bad way to go about this.
Well, make sure a building inspector goes and make sure that it's done appropriately as he's
Who's-
done.
The building
as he
inspector's
has
not
done,
qualified
as
to do
he-
this. You need an
He's not.
engineer, a construction inspector.
He's inspecting the library currently, or is he not okay to do that?
Building and doing
Are you kidding me?
utilities are entirely different.
Are you kidding me?
It's not a building.
Oh, but a minute ago it was. All in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, 3-0-2. The abstentions are considered no's for the vote count, 3-2 is the vote count. It is approved. Can I get a motion to approve the proposal of Van Dusen and Steve's land surveyors for survey work performed in Wiswall Park for an amount not to exceed $3,800 and authorizing the mayor to execute any related
I'll make the
paperwork?
motion.
Trustee Baskin?
Second.
Trustee Fandesa, discussion?
Does the scope of work include locating all the conduits?
It's going to be all key points necessary. We went to the field and had a full discussion on what they're gonna be doing. They understand some of the challenges there. We're gonna make sure also that key impediments that might be in place, like benches, are removed so that they're not marking spots on benches that might get moved.
Because I've read the bid and there's no detailed written scope of services detailing exactly what they're gonna do. Is that available?
You have what the agreement is.
So there's no detailed scope of work. So there's actually no idea what they're actually supposed to do.
Sean,
Other than
they're
verbal
going
agreement.
out to base, first off, center point, and then all key points that we're requesting from there, and the sonotube points.
Requesting from where? Because the plan you have is not stamped, it's not a final plan.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
What, yeah,
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I'd like to make sure our park is in place and ready for our farmer's market, which previously, how many years ago, was threatened by this board previously by not having their stuff in order. So I'd really like to see us move forward. And
We
it's a
could have moved
service-
forward 2 years
It's a
ago.
service for our community, so.
yeah, I'd like to make a comment following on Bernadette's comment. It is a regular pattern that things are delayed and feet are dragged until the point of, oh, we're in a rush, we must vote for this tonight, right away. The whole park project has been delayed by probably 2 years, given multiple studies, unnecessary studies by you, Frank, on the sewer, given the foot dragging with the diagrams of the park. At least a year was wasted. We should have had where we are now last year. And so I don't find the call of urgency credible coming from you.
There's
And
urgency.
excuse me, happy 4-year anniversary of the Board of Trustees, Ben. What have you been doing?
When you
There's an
started, you've been,
All in
urgency.
favor?
you dragged your feet
Hold on.
for the first 2 years you
Roll
were here.
call vote, Terry, just to make sure we have it here.
Trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Baskin,
Yes.
trustee Fandeka,
Yes.
trustee Price Bush. Yes. Mayor Ross.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Can I get a motion to schedule a public hearing on Monday, April 14th, 2025 at 7:01 PM during the regular Village Board of Trustees meeting related to the proposed local law number 3 of 2025 pursuant to New York State General Municipal Law, Section 3-C, to permit the Village of Ballston Spa to exceed the property tax cap for the fiscal year 2026 beginning on June 1st, 2025.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
So I guess my thoughts on this are, is this a little premature because we still have to have all the meetings
Most
with,
municipalities
with
do
every
this.
department?
Yeah,
Like the
absolutely.
entire board has to
Go ahead.
meet before we even know that we need the tax cap?
So,
Because the budget may change.
Okay, let the attorney, please.
Okay.
so all this does is authorize you to do it if you need to. It doesn't require you to do it. The local law authorizes you to override the tax cap if that's the way the budget turns out. If you end up and the budget does not require it, no harm, no foul, but you have to have this law in place first.
Scotia does this frequently, and I think last year approved it did not go to exceed tax cap in the end, if memory serves.
Yeah, my concern is that we haven't been involved in any way with this tentative, in developing a tentative budget. We haven't been consulted, we haven't been involved in any meetings, you haven't provided a narrative to explain the budget, and yet we are being asked to vote on aspects of the budget.
You're being asked to vote on the
No.
hearing, public hearing.
Yeah, again, all this does is give you the authority, just like when you do a bond resolution, it authorizes you to bond up to a certain amount. It doesn't require you to bond to a certain amount, but you have to pass the resolution. So this sets the public hearing, and at the public hearing, all the law says, and you were provided the law over the weekend, all the law says that you have the authority, if you need to override the tax cap.
Roll call?
Trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Baskin,
Yes.
trustee Fandesa,
Yes.
trustee Price Bush,
Yes.
Mayor Rossi.
Yes, 5-0, motion approved. Can I get a motion to schedule a public hearing on Monday, April 14th, 2025 at 7:02 PM during the regular Village Board of Trustees meeting on the tentative budget for fiscal year 2026 beginning on June 1st, 2025 pursuant to New York State Village Law, Section 5-508, subsection 1.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
So what is the timing?
We have to do it by the 15th, I believe.
You have to do it by the 15th?
Yeah, so this is the only regular meeting left between now and
Right,
then.
so have you scheduled all the special meetings so the whole board can meet with every department and agency and go over this budget?
We'll have a workshop probably on the 7th, if all goes according to plan here.
Okay, probably, or?
Well, I haven't asked if you're available, so probably gonna be there. All in favor of this motion?
Yeah, I mean, just, again, in the past, we've been involved in the creation of the tentative budget. And,
When?
so,
Previous three administrations.
No, you weren't. The tentative budget is the mayor's.
I was
budget.
there,
The tentative
you
budget.
weren't.
Actually, I was, and as a budget officer, I can tell you how it works. Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
And aye.
Abstain.
yeah, I'll abstain.
Okay, it's 3-2 on the vote, and just a reminder that you're mandated by state law to hold this on by April 15th, just a reminder, but it is approved. Can I get a motion to approve the attached agreement between the Ballston Spa High School PTSA and the Village of Ballston Spa related to funding of the after prom party to be held in 2025, a $1,000 contribution?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee
Second.
Fandesa, Trustee Raymond, discussion?
It would be nice if other people were allowed to make motions.
Jump in. You
Sean,
did earlier.
Sean actually initiated this whole piece,
No,
that motion.
I was actually gonna bring that up if you had given me a half a second to say, this continues a tradition by Sean that he started a couple years ago.
It's a group effort.
Amen.
Mhm.
Oh, man.
Sometimes I love you, Sean, sometimes.
You're
Oh.
just never gonna know, you know?
You're getting punchy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the 2025 fire contract between the town of Ballston and the Village of Ballston Spa for fire protection services in the town of Ballston Fire Protection District Number 1, and authorizing the mayor to execute such agreement after final review by the village attorney should any minor modifications be necessary upon the town of Ballston's request.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin,
I'll second.
trustee Fontaine, discussion, tripping over my own words all over the place, so. This is, we just want to let them go for final review, but it's identical to what was approved by Town of Milton, so we're just waiting to get that feedback. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the agreement between Auctions International Incorporated and the Village of Ballston Spa, allowing Auctions International to assist in the sale of surplus DPW equipment already deemed as such, and authorizing the mayor to execute the attached agreement?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fontaine,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the attached bid documents prepared by Studio A related to the Boozewell Park Pavilion, and A, authorizing the mayor to execute any related paperwork related to beginning said bid process, because he writes this too fast at the end of Friday, and B, authorizing the village clerk to advertise the bid documents as directed by Studio A. Trustee Fontaine,
I'll second.
trustee Baskin, discussion.
Again, I'm just gonna go back to what the other one,
Noted.
these plans are not ready for an RFP.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
I'll abstain, I'll follow.
And I to very tie, 3-2, for voting purposes, 302 being the vote with abstentions. Motion carries. Mayor's announcements, as you may know. Q&R. Thank you, Clark. Can I get a motion approving George Long to become a voting member of the Committee on the Arts and fulfilling the remainder of the term of Pat Burnham, who resigned, but intends to remain part of the committee?
I'll make the motion.
I'll
Trustee
second.
Baskin, trustee Fontaine.
Yeah, thank you to Pat, she's a sweetheart for the folks that know her. George, we really appreciate, he's been involved with Arts Committee, and he has been putting together, open mic nights for the Arts Committee for some musicians, they've been pretty successful. So we're glad he wants to continue to help and step up a little further in this way.
Yeah, he's been attending all the meetings and contributing, as you say, and he has a lot of great ideas, a lot of energy. So I'm glad he's willing to step up and be an actual member.
If I'm ever in the need of bacon, I'm getting George's dog to get me some. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion approving the peddler's permit of Cousins Seafood for their food truck?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fontaine,
Second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion.
I'm allergic to all of this.
Are they just selling lobster?
No, were doing like, so they did try this one time without the permit, and we kind of had to shut them down, although we let them finish the day out. They had lobster bisque. Jen, what'd they have? Since you surveyed.
They had lobster bisque, they had lobster rolls, they had lobster with fries, they had lots of lovely, wonderful lobsters, and
All things lobster.
all things you want lobster.
You say like it's a bad thing. All in
Just for
favor?
my cholesterol.
Yeah, sure.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, mayor's announcements, I mean it this time. Not to take away your thunder, but I do want to point out to everybody that on Milton Avenue, Route 50, along the business corridor, on the, what is that, the west side of the street, is the beginning of the work to, well, what was going to be to remove roots, but there is just no conceivable way to remove roots on this one. This has become a grind down as far as you can process, and then eventually replace sidewalk once that's done. These trees, I saw pictures of what was underneath, and it's amazing. It's amazing to me that the gas line that is underneath there is functional at all with what was going on for way too long. So.
DOT placed those trees.
Yes, they did. So, you know, part of what we're gonna be doing next is where possible, where there's enough room between building and tree box, replacing trees with the assistance of the Park and Tree Board. But right now, it's about a 2-week-long process estimated to basically remove panel, grind down tree stump, do any other work that's necessary, make sure grid is okay with where things stand, and then replace that sidewalk, also possibly file down a couple areas that may have very minor blips that aren't going to be replaced in that manner. So yeah, that it's a process, but it's a necessary process. I was walking over there just bringing them some sidewalk closed signs the other day and almost tripped across the darn thing where it's still exposed too high. So, I can only imagine what people just trying to walk day to day are going through over
And
there.
I guess we should make the point that now that we're in the sidewalk business, if
Not in the
other,
sidewalk business,
if other properties have public trees that are damaging the sidewalk, we've done this for one property, so, it needs to be done for whoever, we deem the trees have damaged the sidewalk, and on their property. It needs to be equal for everybody. I'm glad to see it because I support that, but, it needs to be clear, it's not just a one-off. If we can't do something just for one property and not
Yeah,
equal for
the
everybody.
precedent's been set.
It's been, in fact, what you guys apparently don't realize is that we've had other trees that have done this on Low and High Street that we deemed it necessary to take down, that were village trees that affected a sidewalk area as well. And we did handle those.
Did we fix the sidewalk?
Yes, we did.
Okay, good,
So-
so people should know, that should be more
This
widely
is,
known.
but I object greatly to this notion that the village is in the sidewalk business. No, we're not. Okay, we, from time to time, do what we need to do. That's what our DPW does. Okay, when there's a job to be done, when a sewer goes bad or a sidewalk situation develops, they step up and say, let us do it to save money for this village.
Right.
Okay? To sit there and act like this is their new business or something, their side hustle of some sort, no, it's not.
I
And
just-
it's disrespectful to them to go there. in
No,
that
it is
manner.
not
Yes,
disrespectful
yes,
to
it is.
anybody, Frank.
It
It is
well,
not, that's a favorite
perceptions
tactic,
what matters,
it's a
Ken.
favorite tactic of
moving
yours.
along here,
But-
yes.
I don't even know why you're conflating the two.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
we're in mayor's announcements, friends,
Yeah.
let's continue to stick with
The
that.
basic point remains that what's good for one person will be good
Mayor
for another
Baskin's talking
property
apparently,
owner.
so. Moving to budget, tentative budget. So at this point, on the clerk's behalf, because technically the statute says clerk presents, but to save her from coming over here, I will pass out the budget
Thank
to
you.
the board and to the crowd as well, and also the executive summary. So you can give me a moment here, I go to our friends here. I'll let everybody pass around the remainders. Start passing those, and then.
If it doesn't pass them,
Okay.
might follow.
Pass this down? Huh? For what? Take out Patterson. Executive summary. This is for those, for anybody that we might not have enough for, it is right now, Jen, you posted that right on the website? So it is up there as well. Okay, I'm not going to read you 8 pages worth of executive summary, you're welcome. Thank you. But I do want to go over some highlights and discuss the tax cap issue among other things here.
Sorry, I'm getting a glass of water.
About 3 of them right now.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Could you pass that on to Carla, please?
Hey, Mike.
She's parked.
I didn't make this Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, wait, was that the vodka?
Oh, sure. Listen, it's budget time, I just sit right here.
You go, Jay.
I don't have to do anything.
That new Kettle One was.
Yes, it's got a little kick to it, I heard.
I feel.
Much better, okay, got it. Okay. So, long story short, we had some highs and lows in this upcoming budget year with respect to budget. We had some great savings in medical plan scenarios after we'd done the audit with respect to who belonged on the retirees' normal plan per se, and the MVP Medicare Part D plan, and moving people that should have been put to there over to there because they attained the age 65. In addition to that, the Teamsters Medicare plan, or Teamsters medical plan that all Bill's staff are now on is showing some savings as well. And we did some very, very precise math this year with respect to it because we had a much better gauge on everything, and it's showing help, to say the least. So, you know, with that, you offset some concerns about sales tax right now. You'll see in the treasurer's report it was down for the January numbers that get reported in March. So it's still a little bit of a concern right now about, you know, the future year of sales tax, but I went pretty conservative overall on sales tax expectations in this one. We copied CHIPS numbers in this, from the previous year, which we normally do, and right now, I'm not sure if the budget's going to show any increase in CHIPS or CHIPS type funding. We are looking to a little bit more rent possibility, because we're gonna be renegotiating all the contracts for what's going on in the monopole eventually, and that is going before our zoning board soon for the 180-foot monopole being sponsored by the village to get the cellular equipment off of the water tower. But long story short, all the things that we normally fund, we're funding. We've got a couple vehicles coming up for the police that are necessary. We're looking to get some more your speed signs, probably 7 to 8 of them, and probably put a couple of them near Alt Avenue Elementary School, which John and I have discussed before, although we still probably are going to proceed with the school zone ticketing program, but at the same time, we're going to have a little bit more functionality there to see how things are going with those signs too. Again, it's not a cash grab, or not an attempted cash grab, it's an attempted safety for us. And also making sure we have the $10,000 set aside for the grant situation for the UPWP grant that I discussed last meeting. So all the garden variety things that you expect in the budget in here, 2.5% for everybody, but certain people that were affected differently by minimum wage chasing them from behind, and for us as well. I'm sure we'll argue about this, but let me just finish this for now. So also, just to be clear, in this version, we're still going to be looking to be doing water and sewer increases to help pay for the towers, but one thing I discussed last year that's an important change that is required actually to a certain degree from what we can tell from our accountants and everything is that the storm sewers have been put into the G fund, which is the sanitary sewer fund. And I have finally tried to extricate that from G back to the A fund, but that causes a little bit of a problem because the money that was going to G included stuff intended for storm sewer. So what we're gonna have to do for in-village water users and sewer users is essentially drop the sewer rate by 15% and increase the water rate for in-village users by 7.5%. What that does is nullifies the drop. It basically is routing from one end to pay to the other, but joining where that storm sewer is going into the A fund, because the water rates go into the A fund and the sewer rates go into the G fund. So more or less, we're just moving storm sewers into A and the money that goes with them in the way that we've got to conduct that. So you're gonna see some oddities in the requests coming up for water and sewer rates, but ultimately, it comes down to all we're trying to do is raise the rates 6.5%, 3.25% for inflation, another 3.25% for water, for tower purposes, and for sewer, for just continuing to build up the fund balance, because that fund balance has come a long way over the last few years, but needs to continue because of the infrastructure concerns we have right now.
How much do we have in the G fund?
You're talking about the fund balance, I can give you a projection, if that's what you're looking for. For the end of this year, the projection right now is $304,635. It was when I took over as mayor, or right after I took over as mayor on May 31st, or the 21st, says here, I think it's 31st, 2022, 76,000. So we've gone from 76,000 to 304,000 in our fund balance for sewer. And
Yeah, I'm just curious as to, does offsetting the balance,
oh, we're still gonna have plenty there.
Yeah.
So,
well, because we could use a few million there, so.
well, we're, by continuing to raise sewer with water, because sewer's not paying for a specific item like the water towers for water, you're gonna get to $1 million probably pretty easily over the next few years. I think that's the goal for sewer. But again, the comptroller doesn't like to see money sitting there as an unassigned fund balance to a certain degree. So we'd have to also talk about what we'd have to do and maybe, naming specific projects to attach it to or whatnot. That's something down the line, just something to consider though about when we start getting that sizable even in the sewer fund. The big announcement though with respect to this budget comes in the form of really going after a capital planning approach. We have projects that have sat idle for way too long, before even my time as mayor. And we've been looking into them, trying to figure out what the costs are, trying to figure out how to even pay for them. And here's what it reduces down to. $12.5 million in capital planning. And I will name the issues or topics related to that capital planning, and talk about how you pay for that much money worth of stuff here. First, the DPW building replacement after demolition, so demolition costs too, is estimated to be in the vicinity of about $4 million. Anticipated time frame is spring 26 to spring 27 for such a rebuild, and we are going to try to talk to the town of Milton to see if they leave their existing facility intact when they move to their new garage, if we can rent that facility for that time being. Also work with the town of Ballston with any other needs we may have there. For fire trucks, including the pumper truck that's due to come in this summer, and the ladder truck, which will take 3 years to order, $3.5 million for the fire trucks. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. With respect to John Street Tower, the Rollins Street Tower, and Colonial Hills Tower, already in the hopper to a certain degree, but making sure that we are covering this as part of potential long-term debt, $1.75 million for those. For sidewalk loan pool and the new reimbursement approach, especially to use this alongside the paving plan over 11 years, as we indicated in our ADA plan, $1 million to help give us about 5 years worth of reimbursement and loan pool in that situation, some of which we're already carrying forward into this budget year, I should identify. For this building, $750,000, and that comes down to sort of renovating what you're sitting in right now, also some of the stuff exterior-wise and upstairs as well, and looking into a potential elevator for that if we want to intend other uses in this building. So this is one of the best views you'll ever get upstairs. I don't know if Mary, you've ever been up there, but to see the view, I think others have here in the board. It's a great view, but unfortunately, it's not handicap accessible at all up here. So we've got to look to see what we can do to make this a fully ADA compliant building at some point in time if we're going to retain it. For the court, for 30 Bath Street, $500,000 in order to basically make it both a court and a meeting space, because we are still in need of additional meeting spaces in the village. Even if the library goes back online as our main meeting space, it's not to say we can't use additional spaces right now in the village, also equipped with technology so that we don't have to set this up and down every time, even in the library. That anticipated time frame would be the fall of this year to the spring of next year. And a possible sale leaseback is something to consider for that approach. For library construction costs, our library board has been very concerned about some mitigation maneuvers they need to take care of, and then also some of the possible problems they may have, as Mary knows, sitting on that with them on their board's liaison, with respect to fundraising and grant availability down the line for future phases. And so I want to make sure that we included them in future planning as well, to the tune of $500,000 of availability, which in discussing that with members of the board last week, at that point it's down as $400,000, but then the roof became an issue as well. So we bumped it to $500,000 to be more comprehensive, to give them a little bit of protection, a little less anxiety ultimately. We still want them to raise funds. It's not a question of that. It's just a question of being there to say that we are here for our library. We didn't really contribute anything to the cause, maybe a few thousand here and there for what they're doing right now. So they've done such a tremendous job fundraising already. It's our turn to speak in to support them, or make sure at least that support is available to them. For the two parks not named Wiswall that deserve some attention, as the guy to my right here will indicate, Kelly Park and Iron Spring Park, $375,000 for next spring to fall 2027. This is one of those areas where grants are important, because there's a new grant for parks that was just announced by the state, and when we met with Studio A in the park on Friday with Caitlin, I indicated it's probably a good time to meet with the Park and Tree Board and come up with some things you'd like to see done in Kelly Park, in Iron Spring Park. For instance, a fountain for Iron Spring Park would be pretty helpful, I think, because of where or how it's currently positioned, located. The building itself, being historic as it is, probably needs a pretty good upgrade, just in terms of making sure it can stand the test of time. Getting some security in Kelly Park, some blue lights perhaps because of the lack of exposure out there, some better walking trails out there, playground. Thank you. Enhancements over there, and also looking at the pavilion to make sure that's gonna stand the test of time. So there's a bunch of things that can be done in those two parks, but trying to get the grants right now, I think the applications due in July would be a great way to offset some of that cost as well. And the pool surfacing, which has been just an albatross for us for way too long. We keep storing away money, and we keep rolling that money over, and we'll continue to do so. But that $100,000 probably now $125 that it'll take to redo the floor. And it's something that we need to do probably next year at some point, maybe even earlier if it becomes a problem. But luckily we have the new pool filter coming in for this year's use of the pool. So at least we have that moving along. So all told, that's $12.5 million of stuff. How do you pay for $12.5 million and utilizing our budget approach to go with it? First, half of our fund balance would be about $2.5 million. Currently we're carrying over $5 million of fund balance, and the comptroller folks have indicated they would like to see some usage of that if we're going to go and try to, raise taxes as well. And so $2.5 million would be applied from there. The water tower money comes from water rates and or Milltown coming online, so that $1 3/4 million comes from something other than tax rates. The truck debt, the fire truck debt reserve, through working with the Ballston Spa Fire Department, I believe we've devised a plan to be able to get them their trucks and not be kind of hemmed in by some of the issues we've had with the negotiations and discussions. I believe we are in a position to order the ladder truck so that we can get it in queue for 3 years from now. And we are going to look to the town of Milton to fulfill the LoSAP scenario, much like they provided for Rock City Falls Fire District a LoSAP. We would ask them to fulfill one comparable to that for our fire department here, and then work on the exact mechanics of how that would work, and also talk to them about guarding our normal inflation from operations in any additional contribution. But it should become clear that the Village of Ballston Spa is committing a lot of money toward their own fire department, and now for that complaint that we weren't doing enough, I think we've crossed the other end of that by far, in case anybody ever wondered. And then the sidewalk loan pool, since it's money that technically still belongs to the village, we would borrow it from the fund balance and then replenish it more so than what we take, because we'd be charging a minor interest rate if we go that route. So all that is about $8.25 million from those. That means we need to raise about $4.25 million plus the interest associated with it from taxes, or find grants, or find additional tax base, or get legislative assistance, or all of the above. So my job here as budget officer is to look at the worst case scenario. What if we don't get another dime, ultimately, and do all these things over the next 3 years? To get a $4.25 million scenario over what would be 25 years, we spoke with Andrew Watkins over at Fiscal Advisors that we talked to, and the way it works is we probably average out to around 25 years of debt in a single instrument from all the things that we throw into a long-term debt instrument. And more or less what it would require us to do if we don't get another dime from elsewhere is go up in taxes 2 to 2.5% a year for 5 to 6 years. And that will take care of what is essentially a litany of issues that people bring to us all the time that need to be fixed in this village, that have been just languishing or lagging or what have you, things that need to get done. And it's honestly something for everyone. The library, court, DPW, this building, sidewalks, so infrastructure, the water towers, fire trucks for safety reasons, stuff that affects all of us day to day. And so it's time for the next 3 years to do what we've said we were going to do for years and years, and let's get it done, ultimately, is what this budget comes down to.
I'm glad you finally have some fire under you and interested in moving forward. I've been on three years, and this is probably, I do appreciate the work you put in. You put in a lot of work, a lot of thought. This is probably the least that I've ever been involved with budget development. I don't know about Sean, but, we all have ideas, thoughts, contributions. I'm sure that we could have played a valuable role in helping to shape this budget to some degree, and have been denied that opportunity, that ability, so I'm sad to see that.
Just to be clear,
But-
Ben, this is the exact amount of input you had in the tentative budget in fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 24, and I believe fiscal year 23, even when it was a prior mayor.
Just to be clear, we had meetings starting in January and February in past years, involving
9/24,
involving
25.
department heads and involving board members, so.
Yeah, you're wrong.
So the last 2 years, I'm misremembering what we've done?
Well, for the prior mayors, we met with every department, every committee, and went over every budget as a board. And then a tentative budget was met.
And under this situation, we're saying we'll have a workshop coming up, so if
Well,
you guys
that's-
want to talk.
So we're
too
gonna
little,
go
too
with
late.
every committee, every agency, and every department in one night?
Is that necessary?
But it was necessary for 3 other mayors. I don't know why all of a sudden you decide you're so different from them. I thought they were pretty esteemed individuals. So,
I mean, the responsibility is shared by all of us.
Wasn't
to-
what you always said about them.
It's shared by all of us to, for the finances of this village and the budget. And, we're responsible for voting on this budget. So it's a little disrespectful not to involve us at all with the creation of the budget. I just feel like that was a missed opportunity, but appreciate the time you put in. But it's too bad that's how you choose to operate the village.
The governor of New York State does it this way. It's the usual process where an executive makes the proposed budget,
There's a lot more than one workshop, one night meeting at the legislature.
But
has
again, you're
to
complaining
input
about
into
the
budget.
proposed budget, and the governor issues her proposed budget every year on her own, and then the legislature provides comments, so this is a similar
And
process.
there's months and many meetings. This time we're gonna have, if we're lucky, one meeting
That's
after
what you
the
had last
fact.
year. It's exactly what you had last year. Nothing's changed.
yeah, and last year
Yeah.
was unacceptable.
Yeah, we had,
I
And the
think we
year
had a-
before that was unacceptable.
I think we had a pretty good go of it last year, so I guess it's all.
Well,
coming back to
again,
discussion.
that's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
But, as I said, when I say esteemed individuals, the prior all had their, flaws, but the one thing they all agreed on, maximum transparency and maximum involvement of the board in the budget. And that is sorely lacking here.
Oh, I think there's pretty good transparency here, where I basically am sitting here saying, we need to raise, taxes if we get
Oh, I
nothing else for
understand.
5 to 6 years, 2.5% a year, trying to be respectful in the balance of it all. I think it takes a lot of work to make sure you minimize that scenario and indicate where, you can identify things that you can offset it with, such as the grant I pointed out, such as legislative help. Already talked with Jim Tedisco's office about general principles and things that we might be able to work with him on. Again, I have to sit here on a tentative budget scenario like this as budget officer and say, in a worst case scenario, what are we facing? And let's start the process right now, and then hopefully we can cut off the process at a certain point and say, I think we're gonna have enough debt service protection at that point in time. So that's probably, if you wanna be valuable in the process, identify places to get the money from, external sources ultimately, if you
Well,
can.
I don't think you determine what my value is where and when.
Well, I think it's valuable to the community to do that, Sean. I'm not trying to be curt with you, I'm just being.
I don't see why it isn't valuable for every board member to sit on these initial meetings and go through with each agency, department, committee, or board, and go through their budget and say, well, why do you need what you need? What needs to be done differently? Because also, that's a public meeting, and now the public gets even increased. That's the utter lack of transparency I'm talking about, is the lack of public input the lack of public observation on this process. You've completely shuttered it. And I just don't know why. Why are you terrified? Terrified of transparency?
As a person that created the two public comment sessions with Bernadette's assistance over the last few years, I don't think I'm terrified of public comment. I think actually we've turned you around. This isn't a question of public comment. This is, as she said, a question of I'm doing my job to release a tentative budget as a budget officer, okay? And our first job, why don't you actually do yourself a favor? Go to the OSC manual about this and look at the calendar and how it's written out. And it will tell you, that's my job. That's my job.
It's also your job to schedule the meetings for the board,
No,
which
it's
you
not.
failed.
No, it's
to
not
do
actually.
your job.
No, actually, it's not. If you
Well-
want meetings, then you as a board, and this is what we said last year, you as a board, take it over. Here you go. I have done my job, okay? That's my job. Now it's your turn. So, what would you like?
You set up a
Go.
situation where we are not able to provide.
Ben, go read the
adequate
OSC
input.
guidance on this.
So-
It's there.
Also, the comment about you added comments. Comments from the public are only as valuable as they know what's going on. So if there's no transparency of what the village is actually up to, then their comments can't be as informed as they should be.
8 pages worth of executive summary, the full budget to go with it, a
That's,
month to discuss it. I think we've got some good transparency time here.
we're just seeing this, so obviously this meeting is wasted in terms of our response because we just got this when the
Nobody's
public
asking
got it.
for a response tonight. If you want to have sessions, let us know when. It doesn't have to be tonight. I can name a special meeting based on rules of procedure, or you two could technically bring a rules of procedure. So nobody's indicating you're falling off a cliff tonight. The job on this meeting tonight, according to OSC, is to present you and the public the budget ultimately. It's a little redundant in that Thursday night, I was supposed to do the same thing, but nobody was gonna go to their mailboxes to get it, so I emailed it to all of you that night. But then, here tonight, I'm giving you the budget according to what we're supposed to, technically the clerk, but she asked me to do it on her behalf here, and I did. And gave you also the executive summary to go with it, and as you can tell, it's a little bit more verbose than prior years because of the capital plan that's inside there. That's a few extra pages compared to normal, and want to make sure that we had everything covered correctly.
Yeah, so we're just
So I-
disappointed we weren't more involved. That's all.
Well, then talk to the state comptroller, that's all I can tell you, because that's their schedule, and
You have the
tell me if
ability.
I'm wrong there, if you see otherwise.
There's no right or wrong way. You are responsible as the budget officer for the tentative budget. You can have workshops and you could not have workshops. It's up to you.
Right, it's in your control, right?
Right. So we could have had
Right.
workshops before this tentative budget.
Could have, yeah,
Yeah,
not required.
so we're disappointed that it didn't happen, that's all we're saying.
You still have time for workshops and to amend, that's the way it works. Mary had, I think, did you want to say something? You looked at me like, yeah, okay, fine. But if you did want to say something. But that is where we are with the budget summary, and there will be continued discussion. If you want specific workshops with specific department heads, let me know who. I'm gonna be working on getting you what we called last year the verbose budget, so that you can see specifically what goes into each 400 account or 200 account, because that's not always indicative. We only budget to 400 and to 200, but obviously the waterfalls into subcategories as well. I'm gonna be getting into that as well. It's a lot more paperwork. I'm gonna assemble all the backup information
When
for
do
you
you
too.
anticipate that?
Hopefully over the next week, we can get that to you, so you have that as well.
Can you send it as an Excel?
No,
Why not?
I'm gonna send it to you as a PDF because that's how I'm gonna be able to aggregate all of it ultimately.
You're using an Excel to aggregate everything.
No, I'm not.
You're not using a
you're
PDF?
complete. I'm,
We received a PDF last week.
yeah, I got you a PDF.
I know, but I'm asking for an Excel so we can
There's
use.
no Excel to utilize, so.
What are you doing before you turn it into a PDF?
Oh, you're
what
saying
program
the
are you
base
using?
budget? I'm not gonna give you my base budget unless you absolutely need it, because I don't want multiple versions of that, and then it's just gonna
And that is
confuse
why
the
it was a
situation.
PDF last year.
Yeah, if you wanna make a change, just come with the changes ultimately, and we can easily make.
Well, what I'm saying is, it would help me to analyze the budget and understand it and look at it and think about it, if I had an Excel. And, so it wouldn't be the official version of the budget.
No, he needs lists, but I mean,
So that, no, I would like the Excel. So And
Noted
why
and
not?
received a PDF.
Yes, you
PDF.
received a
Because-
proposed PDF of
So that's
every
another
document-
indication of how you
documentation.
are hurting our ability to analyze and look at the budget, because PDF obviously is harder
You
to
can read a
filter
PDF.
and, no,
You can read
No,
PDF.
what's gonna have to happen is
Oh
you're
my
gonna have to
gosh,
put
guys,
all
I'm
the
trying to
data
make
into a
sure.
spreadsheet so that you can analyze and work the numbers.
right.
Cause that's what you do with spreadsheets.
No, that's actually not what you got last year. You're gonna get separate
No, I
sheets
know what you
showing the waterfalls.
But it
That's
would be
not-
helpful to get an Excel so that we can
Right.
manipulate the numbers and see what happens.
Because it's gonna take a
Why
considerable
wouldn't
amount
you?
of time, and we really only have 2 weeks.
Why
So-
wouldn't you do that?
I did it in a week.
Why wouldn't you do that? Well, it's your full-time job, we have other jobs.
It's my full-time job.
It is.
This is a part-time job.
So there's, I don't understand why we couldn't get an Excel. You know, what's the harm in doing that?
Preserve, he just said to ensure that there is one cohesive document and not multiple versions.
There won't be. His document will be the one cohesive, and mine, you will not take as the
Well,
cohesive.
he could send an Excel spreadsheet, password protected, and all we have to do is we save a copy of it, and it's our copy. His
Right.
original is password protected.
Yeah,
It's
we're not
change.
gonna touch his copy, we're just touching the copies you send us.
Thank you for your request for work product. They'll be taken under advisement.
Right, so here's another example of making it impossible
First
for us
things
to-
first, I'm gonna get you the
to
proposed budget the same way you did last year, so we have the
And
discussions.
last year was wrong too.
There's a difference between, again, to say it's wrong, it's not required. And it's ensuring that there's one document, because often documents somehow end up online that aren't necessarily versions that everybody's working off of. So you're gonna get a PDF, you can, analyze it and look through it like everyone else does. And, last year, if there was a question, we said, hey, we have a question about this line, can it be adjusted? So.
It is not helpful to have
Well,
PDF.
I'm sorry you can't work under those conditions.
Well, I'm
Everybody
sorry
else can see
you're not being collaborative. I'm sorry you're not being collaborative
under your
and
definition
easy
of
to
collaborative, so
find,
let's move
to
forward.
work with.
Okay, I did want to reintroduce, I had mentioned it earlier, but it's always great to have our affiliation with BSBPA, not to steal your thunder as liaison here. But John Shea is the new president of BSBPA, and at DESO, VP as well. I didn't know if you guys wanted to address the board at all, just say hello, introduce yourselves or anything like that. Yeah, watch your head if you stand. You don't have to go all the way.
No, I appreciate it, coming to hear what's going on in the town, figure out in the long run, for my next 2 years to see how we can collaborate with the businesses downtown to continue to drive traffic, and excitement for exploring Ballston Spa. So my information's on the BSVP website. If you guys want afterwards, happy to chat, but reach out to me with any questions or concerns.
One of the big things that you are involved with is digital marketing especially, and I've already been bringing a lot of ideas and video types coverage and whatnot to the BSBPA. We appreciate that. We see your efforts in that and hope it continues. And when you need anything from us as a board, the best person to go through is obviously Brita as your liaison, but always happy to sit down with you and talk with you guys about anything you need down the line, and congratulations on being named as such.
Yeah, I want to also thank you for taking the helm of that. It's a really important group and an important position, so thanks for doing that. You guys make a lot of contributions to this village.
Appreciate it, we got a great team, so we'll continue to do everything we can.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that is it from me, more than enough, I think, at this point, so for that, take away for, I'm sorry, let me just do the remainder of the treasurer's report that I didn't quite get to, there's not much left to it though. It was thanks to all the info received from committees, department heads, and utility payments. Utility payments have been processed through March 20, 2025. Any payments we have received after February 28th have been processed with a penalty. Sales tax, January sales tax for the county was down 1.68% for the same period in 2024, and the village obviously received a lower amount than last January's, or last March's payment. January's sales tax would reflect it because we have a different assessment growth. I should point out one other thing, and I think Laura Arminsky is on here. Yep, I see her on watching. She is the town of Milton assessor. One of the oddities that occurred this year, and it's been developing a little bit because of what we call the equalization rates between properties that are located in the village on the town of Milton side and the town of Ballston side. each town has a different equalization rate, which says basically, okay, we're gonna try to keep your assessed values the same every year, but we also know your property values generally go up or down each year. And so the equalization rate is given by the state to say, here's the factor you use. So yeah, keep the assessed value stable, but here's what the real values probably are for these properties. Well, a funny thing's been happening in the towns of Ballston and Milton. Their equalization rates have been plummeting over the last 5 years or so. And what's weird about it is they didn't really move tremendously big for the first 15, maybe 10, 15 years of when they had done a full reassessment last, which was about 2006. But suddenly it's escalated. And Milton's has begun to separate from the town of Ballston's. What does that mean? Well, this year it meant if we had stayed at tax cap in the tentative budget proposal, the tax rate for the town of Milton properties would have gone up 2.4% or thereabouts for tax rate. So an increase of 2.4% tax rate. Town of Ballston properties at tax cap would have gone down 0.8% because of this disparity going on. And so when we go and do the additional 2% approach that I was talking about for capital planning, it becomes 4.5% in Milton and 1.1% in town of Ballston properties, 1.11% to be exact. So we are talking with the town of Milton especially to say what's going on. Laura provided a list of all property sales in the village over the last year, and we took out some what you would call invalid sales, closely held properties, or you give it to a relative at a low price or something that's clearly odd on the list. And so once you remove those, the equalization rate in the town of Milton is 63%, and basically the factor that we're seeing between assessed value of property and the sale price of property was about 63%. So what we're seeing is actual, real, fast growth in property values in the village of Ballston Spa, consistent with what the rest of the town is seeing. I'm going to assume that the same is true in the town of Ballston too, but it does create some real anomalies in the tax system. What I can tell you though is, more or less, town of Milton property values in the village went up 12.5% in 1 year. And rates are going up 4.5% on property taxes in our proposal here. So we are definitely not getting even close to the escalation of property values right now in this village, at least based on those numbers. And thanks to Laura, I also did ask Laura, and I'm going to be asking the town of Ballston assessor to consider highly doing a full reassessment. We're due, I think, in both towns right now, so that we can get back to parity on tax rates and start kind of from scratch there. When that happens, rest assured, our tax rate goes with it. So we don't just sit there and get a windfall from a reassessment. We move the tax rate with it so that the tax revenue is the same either way. It just allows us to show people a little bit more parity between a property owner up there and a property owner down there, or vice versa, if you want to go up and down, I guess, in north and south. But you get my point, that there's some real wacky things that start happening with these numbers, and we saw it firsthand in this tentative budget as I was working it out, and enough for me to reach out to the town of Milton assessor. So again, thanks to Laura for her hard work on this with us over the past week especially. Now it's your turn.
Oh, thank
Sorry.
you. Mayor preempted me. Congratulations to John Shea and also Ed for their new roles as executives. Thank you to Liz Biddle for all she did as secretary, and she's stepping down from her position, but will still be on that board. We also want to congratulate Christine Kernigan for a long time on that board and serving in different roles. She's going to stay on as President Emeritus, I believe is the title. Past president, so she's still around, and I know she plans on serving on the board still. Just to reiterate, we're here for you. We're gonna set up a meeting at some point with John and anyone else from the board that wants to be in it, but to talk about how we can collaborate and work well together. Not Christine, oh my goodness, Dina. Shot me a couple, actually I want to talk about the annual meeting. It was a great turnout. I thought, it's really good, a lot of fresh faces, which is nice.
Great food.
Great food always, shout out to Next Door Kitchen. But, it just shows that there's some vibrancy, in our small businesses, young business owners, which is nice to see. So we applaud their efforts and kind of where they're going in the next year. I'm trying to think, okay, Dana says there's not a lot of updates, but so, just one thing, is that they're extending their scholarship application. It's for high school students who work while they are a student. The deadline is now April 9th, so that is probably one of my favorite committees that I served on, because you get to read about hardworking young people in our community who, are sharing their passion and what their dreams are in the future, and it's a really nice way for our business community to support young people that hopefully will come back and spend, live here and spend their money and, support our small businesses, so, that's all I've got. Real late today, so.
Also, I would be remiss, I think she'll kill me for probably not including her, but I want to say this, Anna Stanko, in addition to Laura Minsky, in Sarasota County Property, also was assisting us with trying to determine what was happening with some of our numbers as well. So Deanna, thank you very much for your help trying to unfold all that over the past week too. Now to Mary for her liaison report.
Great, and congratulations, Richard.
Thank you guys for all the support.
The Ballston area seniors, I know I'm bringing them up, but if people are thinking of joining, they have picking sessions the first Wednesday of the month, guitar. They start at 6, go until 9, and they have dances almost on a Saturday, almost every month. This year, there's 6 more this year, so if you want to look into it, I think June and July are the only 2 months that they don't have dances. So they stay very active. The library is still scheduling tax help with AARP being held at Grinnell Cooperative Extension. You can make appointments either online or calling the library, and they'll be doing that tax help until April 4th. They also, the Library Board of Trustees held their officer appointments, and all of the current members were nominated and accepted their positions for another year. So Andy Mannion will continue to be president, Patty Tesh treasurer, and Lori AC secretary. And they are rock stars. They are so organized, and it's wonderful watching them perform.
They so hate coming to me with an issue, as you know, like, they're so scared, that, we just can't help them for some reason. They make it so easy with all the work they do to do what we can to help them out all the time. They are absolute rock stars, and I appreciate you saying that.
And that's all I have.
Thank you. Ben?
Caitlin wrote a little note again. I'll just read the parts of it. They're planning their Arbor Day celebration and tree planting for Saturday, April 26th, so I'll have to get you a motion for that for next meeting. Exact details to be determined.
They might use some Wall possible trees in coordination with that, or Earth Day, or both, or something. I think she's talking.
Yeah, they might go multiple places. They have been thinking about what trees to plant in Milton Ave to replace the other trees, but I mean, it may not be. Is there going to be space for additional trees, or are we doing other plantings? Or
No, the plan has always been to put
a tree next
boxes.
to the stump trees. Okay.
We'll have tree boxes where they exist currently, but not all of them will get filled with trees because of either proximity to an intersection or just not enough space between the property and that tree box. But those will be used for flowers probably, or something along that line.
So that's what they're working on.
Yeah.
And then they're just excited to see the Wiswall Park coming along. And they thank Studio A and Jeff Lincoln for their work. The Committee on the Arts keeps going full speed ahead. They had a great event on March 21st, open mic night, Real McCoy. Their next event is April 9th at Real McCoy, a poetry open mic night, 6 p.m. And it's, again, all these things are on Facebook, Committee on the Arts Facebook. On April 12th, 9 a.m. Brookside Museum, they have poetry writing workshop. Make sure you register for that. Space is always limited at those things. 4/26 at 7 p.m. Brookside Museum, they have poetry performance reading. And on 4/27 at 2 p.m. at Brookside again, they have the Cello Experience Sound Bath, it's called. So nice relaxing sound experience. Again, you need to sign up ahead of time. So you can go to the Brookside website or to the Committee on the Arts. And their next meeting is April 2nd. They're not sure if Brookside's available, which makes me wonder, are the fire department, the beautiful meeting rooms, are they ever available for people like Committee on the Arts?
I know sometimes on Mondays, for instance,
Right.
they have their thrill nights, so I'm not sure that would be available.
Right, so Committee on the Arts is Wednesday night.
There's a
You wanna
conflict
check?
with,
I'm not sure exactly.
I
It
can check
sounded,
with them.
sounded like it was ending, for some reason, I don't know the
We can
details.
ask if they can extend,
Okay.
there, and if not, we can figure
We'll
something
figure it
out, yeah.
First I'm hearing about it, to be honest with you, so.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard about this yet, so.
Anything? Ben?
No.
Sorry.
I'm good.
Sean?
Let's see, DPW, here's some things I've been working on. Cold patching, going through the entire village, obviously including High, and High.
Bless you.
Until permanent fixes can be done. Replace the 6-foot section of sewer main on Saratoga Ave that caved in. Also replace the 2-foot section of pipe around the street pump house that's sprung a leak. Now that may not sound like a lot, but that is a large gauge pipe that basically has thousands of gallons of water under pressure through it. So while that was down, there was no water.
But Flex Seal worked for a little while on it, I will tell you that. It holds those boats together and then some.
Yeah, but they were able to knock it out in about 4 hours, so it wasn't too bad. Street sign replacement is nearing completion, with about 10 to go. And then, we still have ongoing efforts with the EPA lead and copper survey. That's for the, access the individual services to properties. And started reading meters from the estimate list. And then there was a fire hydrant repaired on East High Street. And then, of course, what we talked earlier about the stumps. And how they're gonna have to be ground down and basically capped over once we get down a certain amount, so. And that's all I have.
I should add, and thank you for reminding me on this, we met with CHPE reps, CHP being the Champlain Hudson Power Express, which is the electric wire from Canada to Lower Manhattan that's causing all the upheaval behind High Boulevard, et cetera, and then on the roads at High Boulevard and East High Street. And we discussed what their impacts likely were to High Boulevard and East High, and we are working on an agreement where they are going to most likely have High Boulevard and East High Street repaved using specs that we got, at least for High Boulevard, from Evolution, but they may use their own to do it. Either way, it's a win-win because they use the quality paper as well, not to name names here. But yes, but you know, the moral of the story here is that they are taking responsibility for it. Also, they provided us a cold patch the other day to begin, you know, doing some of the process. Any patching we ultimately do as a temporary solution, they would be handling as well, and they're also looking to provide community benefit, which we suggested would go toward probably sidewalks on those two streets most affected in some way, shape, or form. We'll be probably presenting something to the board coming up in 3 weeks at our next meeting, or if we need to get it done sooner, maybe at the workshop, if that's done sooner and ready to go, just to get it moving. Carla will be involved in that process, obviously, because it's technically a settlement of a potential claim that's going on there. So we'll keep you informed on that.
I have one more liaison thing,
Sure.
sorry, the Park and Tree Board, they talked about, there's a question about removing the big tree in the park or not, a really big one, and they definitely voiced, and they took a motion and all that, to not remove it, and would prefer just not even having a path next to it if it's a risk to the tree?
Yeah, we assessed on Friday, with Jeff Heck, who's JH, principal, and, we had the, surveyor out there, and Jeff Anthony from, Studio A, Scott Kearns and me. We were all out there looking at that situation, because I was like, we need to make a decision now on this, because obviously we're moving this forward, we gotta come to commitment. The answer was, when we paced off, basically, Center Point moves about 24-ish feet to the south, and puts that tree right in that zone of problem if you were to put that pathway in. Even if you try to skew it a few feet, you're still gonna have a root issue with trying to do a compacting of the subbase over there. So we said the best bet is to just eliminate that spoke entirely and keep the tree there. We think the tree can coexist with the remainder of what the pathway is. Parker Tree doesn't think that any more root system growth is really gonna be probable, or at least any kind of major growth because of the age and size of it. I mean, there's gonna come a day probably when it does need to come down, kind of sitting there alone, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it then. So for now, yes, we're gonna respect that request and just redesign that small portion to eliminate that spoke. Okay, let's see here. Why don't I hand this over to our esteemed attorney to talk about zoning timeline, because she labored to get that together based on requests to sort of figure out ways to get us to around a July 15th conclusion on a bulk of the zoning code, and obviously met some challenges in the process, so let her sort of explain her thought. I think we've heard a little bit of misinformation about what the public ability to be involved was during the first public comment session, so maybe give a little bit more information for that as well, just to be
Yeah, and
clear on
I
that.
asked for this to be on the agenda also, and I also have comments.
Well, that's fine, but right now, I think you had said that we're gonna work with her
That's fine.
document, so here we go.
I'll go for this,
Yep.
I'm also interested in talking.
Go right ahead.
So the mayor had asked me to put together a timeline with a mid-July date for the zoning code. And what you have, and what everyone has probably seen, I sent it over to the board, and I said, it's probably been out there to the public as well, is the dates on here, a lot of them are statutory. And by that I mean they are required by New York State law, or by village code, your own village code, or by DEC regulations under seeker. So there's specific timelines that have to go in here, so I had to go backwards. I also looked at it, and I worked with Chris Bushell as well. We've been talking about this because there's a lot of moving parts. You'll remember we did this with the comprehensive plan. We had a timeline put together, it got amended 3, 4, 5 times because things get pushed out. So this is, it's a snapshot that could work. It's tight. I told the mayor it was tight, I explained it was tight. I put it in there, but I mean, obviously things can move around. You'll see in there that there's an owner assigned to each of the people on the Gantt chart. And what you do is you'll have to ultimately, you have your public meeting. First of all, you all have it, you have access to the code. You've had it since March 17th. I know that Chris submitted a new map the next day, so on March 18th. So you can review it, look through it, look at the comments, and then on April 3rd, come to a meeting, and Chris is going to present. He's put together a slide presentation for that. Everyone in the public is invited to come to that and give their comments. Then you're going to have another 2 weeks after that, almost another 20 days after that, to review it again, review the comments, review what was talked about, and really kind of let it marinate a little bit more. Now that you will have heard from Chris, and members of the public will have spoken. Put your comments together, and just so, let me back up a little bit. This is how the state does it, because I draft laws for state agencies, and this is how SAPA requires you to do. The State Administrative Procedure Act goes through this. So a lot of this is also done through the state. So this isn't something I'm creating, just because I felt like it. So what we've done is, once the comment period ends, April 21st, then we'll look at it, Chris will look at it for content, I'll look at it for legal parts, making sure they're all, if it says 30 days here, it should say 30 days there, consistency, things of that nature. Making sure it's constitutional, you're not taking people's property, like, you're not supposed to, things like that. And put all that in the code. Prepare all the secret documents, do all that stuff. Over the course of, about a week or so. Provide that to the village board. That happens on May 1st. So that's the next draft that's there. And this timeline, I believe, is either on the website or will be put on the website. The next board meeting is May 12th, and these all presume no special meetings. My guess is you'll have bunches of special meetings, but these all presume no special meetings. So you declare lead agency. At this point, it's a local law, and you all have sat here and watched this board adopt many laws. And it's the same process, you just have a couple outliers. For example, this has to go to the village planning board. As a zoning amendment, the village board gets it, then they go, this is great. We accept it, we now refer it. They don't comment on it, you don't comment on it, you don't do anything at that. You accept it and refer it to the planning board. The planning board then looks at it, they make a recommendation, and under the village code, there's specific things they have to say. They do that in the meeting, they bounce it back to the village board then looks at it all, and the village board, amongst itself, not public comment, you can always talk at a meeting, as you know, but the village board makes whatever changes and comments or what have you. After the village board has got a consensus that we're ready to go to public hearing, they submit it to public hearing, it gets submitted to the county planning board at this point. It also gets submitted to the town of Milton, town of Ballston, because they're nearby. So you go through all that, and Saratoga County only meets once a month for their planning board. Then that comes back, then you folks, again, now you can talk at every meeting, right? Twice every meeting, because it'll probably be on the agenda every meeting. Then there's the public hearing. Public hearing's open, public hearing can be 1 day, could be 2 days, could be 12 days. However many days this board wants to keep it open. At the end of the public hearing, they talk about it again. If no substantive changes are made, they adopt the law, it gets kicked down to Albany. You have 20 days to adopt it from when you send down, when you adopt to when you send to Albany. We can do it the next day. All of the dates in here are based on the statutory requirements. So you'll see there's a lot of different dates in here. It was with the direction that get this done, what would it look like if we were to get this done by mid-July? That's what it looks like. I know Marilyn brought something up a point that, this is very rushed, this is very, it's not set in stone. I just want everybody to know it's not set in stone, but it's a good parameter, and it's a good, at least now we're not all flailing in the wind. It's moving forward. So again, this was created from the law. It has nothing, it's not the Zach Charter, it's the village code, the state law, and the state regulations. Okay, you all just got a great legal background.
You gonna charge for that?
Nah, I'm on retainer.
We're paying her.
Well, not for this.
Careful.
No, this isn't
guys.
retainer.
Just to be clear, as she said, in my mind, having an end goal to work toward is a crucial thing to actually work toward something. She had stated, Carla had stated to me especially, it's gonna be tight. I said, that's fine. If it slips by a few weeks or something like that, we get it, okay? This happens, but at least we have a general thing to work toward date-wise for at least the bulk of the code. And obviously we identify some of the things that are problematic, like the short-term rental issues now with the county, that are gonna probably prevent us from having a real definitive solution for that situation, and then how to line up ADUs with or without short-term rentals as well, stuff like that. And also, we probably need a little bit more time amongst ourselves to even look at PDD based on where we left it last time, and where we go with it based on, how it meshes with new code, where we left it last time type of situation. And Historic District Commission, I believe when she gets the chance to resurface here after doing this timeline, she's gonna be reaching back out. I think we actually talked about it.
Yeah, we're setting up a phone call next week.
with Francis, is it? Fran, thank you, at Parks as well, to talk about parameters for Historic District Commission and National Registry type issues. So those 4 topics still probably lag here, but at least we can get local code, so folks are, when they're putting a submission in, are putting it in under the new code once that code is approved, so there's clarity about what's gonna guide us moving forward. Ben, well,
One quick
yeah,
question.
sorry, sure.
Regarding Norabel review, should we have her look at this current version or when it's closer to what our board wants?
I think there's 2 things I think that would be very useful for Norabel. First, to give general input on PDD for brownfield sites and what maybe the utility of using PDD versus overlay districting or something like that, so that we can get something incorporated and not have to do this twice, ultimately, if it comes down to it, since they're kind of moving in decent tandem right now, I think, or at least semi-decent tandem. Second, probably should wait maybe until after the workshop, or even have her watch the workshop and then read the code, maybe. That might make the most sense on that.
So where'd you come up with mid-July? How was that determined?
At that point, it seemed like about 4 to 5 months was an appropriate time with what was left, based on also what Chris had left in his budget. I asked Carla to talk with Chris about budget situations and to also inform me for budget purposes, as in tentative budget purposes, what she would need for next year, because this is a new law and that is separate in her retainer. So I want to make sure we have those costs factored in as well. What was the feedback, if you don't mind me asking?
I haven't given it to you yet. We'll see how.
No,
it
I mean Chris, though.
Chris is going to, he's going to, talk to the folks at his company, and he's gonna submit a change order. Not a huge one. He thinks he can do it within the current contract, but, you know, to be safe, he was gonna talk to them and maybe, you know, up at the meeting, tell me the amount.
Just rather know what we're facing than not know, and then have.
It was gonna be less than, you know, 10 grand.
Okay.
Right, so it sounds like July was somewhat arbitrary, it could be flexible, in terms of that piece and the time frame from there. And then the, what was I gonna say next? Oh, the 4 topics. I don't see any reason why we can't start working on those or continue working on those now, in terms of the language around that. Why, you know, I don't see a reason to wait until after July. Particularly because for PDD, for example, there is something in the zoning that, about the PDD, I don't think it's adequate, but without a fuller treatment, we'll be left with something that's inadequate.
To be honest, I looked at it, I've probably looked at it 3 total times, is my guess, in terms of the whole code, and first time just to read it, second time to try to figure out things that look strange to me, and the third time just to read it with existing code to see interplay, that types of things. And I would suggest we all do that ultimately, but yes, I think part of what we had said was, we're going to concurrently talk about the other 4 topics. It's just a question of, it's probably not going to be completed in the same speed as the bulk of the code that's pretty much all agreed to type of situation. So we end up with multiple local laws in the end, but we make sure that they fit with each other in that situation too.
Right, we don't have to wait till July though to start working on those things.
You know what?
And I think I'm sorry, and I actually did mean to bring that up, that at the same time that this is going on, simultaneously, we're working on the other laws, so that by September or so, they would all, you know, they would all be done at that point, so we can get through the summer.
They're working on it. I talked to Steve Bulger about that, and they are still in flux about how exactly they're gonna handle. So I think I said last week, just in case, the county has a problem right now that they need new legislation at the state level, because their occupancy tax can only be collected on 4 or more units, i.e. a hotel approach. So for short-term rentals, currently it can't be collected in the county. And so they need the state legislature to fix that and to allow them to up their occupancy tax, because it's by far the lowest in the state, I think, and it will still remain pretty low compared to the rest of the state if they get that change. So once they do that, they get the registry, they're gonna be in charge of the registry on this, but then the question becomes, with sales tax and with use occupancy tax, what's left for the municipality, especially if we're gonna be in charge of safety issues and permitting And that's a real mystery right now about what we're gonna be really able to collect in that situation. I think Saratoga was proposing $1,000 for every 2 years. There's no way in hell we could get $1,000 in Ballston Spa in the same way. So we've got to be a little bit cognizant about what are we really getting ourselves into from the municipality level if we go that route. And I think we have to wait a little bit longer for county guidance about what's left in that pie for us.
Okay, thank you. So
Yep.
to address the elephant in the room that wasn't mentioned at all really, except in passing, is we have an existing board policy that entails having the zoning advisory committee function in order to deliver us with the consultant a draft of the zoning of the zone. And that is current board policy, and it's in the ZAC charter. It's been undermined by lack of support from this board and from Matt Erkeline, the chair, but it's still existing policies and it hasn't changed. And the policy should be continued. Yes, it's not legally required, but it is something that the board democratically chose to pursue. Many members of the public have participated in this board, spent many hours with the idea that their ideas would be reviewed and respected, and that the board would be allowed to complete its function. It is probably, 2/3 or 3/4 done, and it was abruptly cut off by Matt Erkeline with your support. But Matt Erkeline has no authority to disband, as he called it, the ZAC. And so I feel that this board should assert that the ZAC should be encouraged and allowed to continue to work with the consultant directly to finish its mission. There's no reason that it should be derailed. I would greatly appreciate the input of that group of people who have spent a lot of time thinking about these things.
Actually, I received a bill today I signed off on from Fisher that would indicate that actually that part of the work was exhausted. That he's in the draft, the only things left are the draft, the small piece of the draft and workshop money, and the final work with the board basically.
It hasn't been exhausted.
It hasn't?
No.
So you're calling a liar on the invoice?
Yeah, you like to put words in other people's minds so that it looks like people are insulting other people who aren't in the room and put them in
Ben,
the
there
middle.
was an invoice I signed today.
I am not saying he is lying. What I am saying is the ZAC, and if you ask the majority of members, they will agree with what I'm saying, have not completed their mission. They have not delivered a draft to the consultants. They have not come up with recommendations for these major topics, and they would be eager to. They'd love to have the opportunity to do that, as they were told they were supposed to do that. And why are we not doing
We
it?
invited them to, did we not, Bernadette?
No, as a group. They're supposed to be deliberating as a group,
Your name's not Bernadette.
coming to a consensus or at least a vote, so that we understand, so that they can talk to each other as a group and come to
They're private citizens,
articulated
they can
opinions.
do all of those things as they wish. They will have the ability to provide input on it, it is my understanding that a lot of other board members do not want to continue these meetings, so as private citizens, they can do what they want.
Have they
We'll
tendered
take
their
it.
resignations then, since they
Right.
choose not to continue with the charter?
Yeah, they
I
should
don't think
resign if they
their
don't
work
wanna
is
continue.
ended as far as they're concerned.
Well, if they're
And
not gonna attend the meetings, then by
There's
default,
no
they're
official
tendering their
meetings.
resignation.
There's no official
The
meeting,
ZAC
so-
never decided as a group to end its function. Matt Erkeline, the chair, never came to the ZAC as a group of people and said, do you think we're done? How do we wrap this up?
You
He
also
just
don't have a
ended it
quorum,
unilaterally.
so,
I think there should be
don't know
at
what to
least
tell you.
one more meeting where that is discussed in terms of the road forward, because that was never
They can
given an
discuss
opportunity
if-
to the
So far,
members.
you've not been able to get a quorum, so I mean.
Well, you have politicized
You've been able to
the
get some
attendance
people
of
there, but
meetings.
not a quorum.
Unfortunately, you and Frank and Matt have
That's you too.
politicized whether someone comes to a meeting or not.
They're
but
private citizens.
If they
I
don't
know
come to a
what I was gonna
meeting,
say.
they should Matt Erkeline should resign. Actually, we have someone who has resigned and he needs to be replaced.
You've
And
not
that
received
person,
any
I have
resignation.
no receipt of that. None.
What, that he resigned?
I have no resignation letter.
We required
mentioned
the
he
PAC for
resigned.
the committee for arts.
At board
I
meeting, he
mentioned
said
he
he
thought he
resigned.
did, but I have nothing to substantiate it, so.
I think that was a motion at a board meeting that he resigned.
No, it was not.
No, not once.
So has he resigned or not? Because at a board meeting, it was mentioned, you mentioned that he resigned. So,
We
I
have
don't have that.
some of the ZAC members, did he tell any of the ZAC members that he resigned?
Well,
The
it's-
chairperson told the ZAC members that he resigned, and that was
The chairperson must have been lying.
early
So,
December.
Arts committee recently told us Pat resigned. We're like, we need a resignation
She
letter.
sent us a lovely note
And
to express it.
So, because that's what I said, make sure she sends one, she was here last time ago, make sure you send it in.
did you tell Mr. Coffey he needs to send something in?
I didn't know it was Mr. Coffey that's
Oh,
supposed to
yeah.
send us. I actually
This
don't.
was discussed in public,
It
okay?
is 9 o'clock, which means we're at the 2-hour mark
So
of this
I'm not,
meeting.
yeah,
Excuse me.
I'm not done with this,
Well, yes,
agenda
you are,
item.
actually.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, yes,
Actually,
you
you
are.
don't get to interrupt.
Well, according to you, we
Because
have to
we're not
follow,
done with the
according to you,
agenda.
we have to follow the rules of
So-
procedure. The rules of procedure read that you're done right now, and it's
No,
time
I'm
for
not,
public
because
comment.
we're not done
Why are
with
you
the
afraid of
agenda.
public comment?
We're not done with the agenda, Frank.
Yeah,
So I have
yes.
a motion, I
Yes,
have
we
another
are.
motion I'd like to make, a motion to use the public comment collection period, or collection method agreed to by the zoning advisory
And
committee
you are
at its
told by
January
Attorney White
16th,
it's not appropriate.
2025 meeting. I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second it.
So that's a new motion.
Motion to table.
No,
I
I'm not,
second.
I'm not.
All in favor of
No,
tabling the motion?
There is nothing in the rules of
Yes, there
procedure
is.
about tabling, no, there isn't, there isn't. And you
Here's
made
the-
recourse to the,
Only we can
to
table.
Robert's rules.
Well,
No.
Carl, could you speak to what the?
There's no
the
tabling of a
process
motion,
Will be, I made a motion.
Unless we
to
table it.
unless we table it, there's no tabling of a motion. So-
You go read Robert's rules.
Yeah, Robert's rules requires that 4/5 of us approve a tabling, you can't do it with 3/5, you can't. So if you wanna follow Robert's rules, then, you're still short. All right, so we have two people who want to make this motion.
Let's not
The motion now,
describe in
it's a new
detail
motion.
Why we're taking the
It's a
procedure
new
that we're
motion, so
taking.
now
So
the
Ben,
public gets to
Ben,
talk.
as
We
Marilyn,
have public
excuse
discussion
me,
now.
excuse me. I'll preside over the meeting. Currently, you're out of order. The
We're
meeting
on
was,
the agenda item zoning.
unfortunately, you hit the 2-hour mark according to
No,
those
you hit the
procedure.
2-hour mark on purpose by having a
No, I
whole
didn't.
budget.
Talking about the
here.
budget, you need to talk about the budget, oh my
No,
gosh.
you talked about a lot of stuff, Frank, and I
Oh
think
my
I'm sorry.
word.
you need to
Here's the
manage your
thing.
time better.
You know,
So-
apparently, I've been trying to ask why we are taking the
There's-
procedure that we're taking, and Carla, if you could remind me,
Yep.
it was sent an email explaining that comments would be accepted, they, privacy would be protected, but then they would also be published, so everybody can have access to it. We will all
The-
have access to people's comments on the zoning code,
The
so.
ZAC had many good reasons why to use Google Docs.
And the form
It would be-
sucked, Ben, to be honest
No,
with you.
it doesn't.
Excuse me, if you'd like to know, the form sucked, because I reviewed the form. I began to fill it out as if I was filling out the form. And Jared, unfortunately, I'm very astute with Google Forms, and I'll tell you flat out, they're not made for narratives. They're not, because I use, you can give me that look all you want,
A text box for you?
they're not made for narratives for getting data out, because
A
it
text
doesn't,
box.
yeah.
Yeah.
I use them for our tournament down in South Florida, and we use a combination of survey questions and narratives. The narratives create huge issues with trying to compile results from them. You can laugh all you
Makes
want.
sense.
Opposed to an email?
Yes.
What are you
actually.
talking about?
Jared,
First of all, so
Actually,
the-
yes, an
That's
email is a
insane.
self,
Let's, everybody's tired.
Yeah, so the DAC, which is charged with managing this process of public input, decided
No,
to
they're
have.
not.
Yes, they
No,
are.
they're not.
Public
Yes,
input
it's
is
board
the board's
policy.
No, they're not.
responsibility.
You need to vote, or you guys should vote on disbanding the ZAC, because, right now, the board policy is they are in charge of managing the creation of the zoning draft, which includes collecting and organizing public input. It does. That's what we're
At their
doing now.
public- at
So
their public
ZAC
workshops.
with a
Everybody
quorum,
gets heard of it.
with a quorum, has decided to use the Google Docs, and it's worked very well for them over time. They were responsible for collecting public input at the last public forum. There's no objection to that. That worked perfectly. And so there should be no reason why they can't continue that function that we've given them and has never been revoked. So if you want to go, you want it both ways. You want to destroy them, but not go on record as destroying them. If you want to disband them, you make a motion to disband them. But otherwise, it's village policy that they continue, and they should be allowed to function and continue as intended.
Can we ask council to explain,
Please do.
do you mind explaining why we're taking the procedure that we're taking?
For accepting public comment.
Public comment.
As I advised the board last week in email, and I actually didn't hear anything from anybody, I'm assuming you all got it. And there was a really lengthy summary that went with that, because I knew these are the questions that would come up, and I wanted to preset the board and ask for any questions so you could ask me. I hadn't heard anything, so this is the first time that I've heard Trustee Baskin raise this
I
issue.
prefer to talk in public.
Okay, this is the first time that Trustee Baskin, I presented a legal, well, in any event. The Google Doc, I've never seen it, but I have used Google. I represent tons of school districts, that's what we use. I'm familiar with Google Docs. A lot of the communities are not. A lot of the, a lot of people don't have computers, don't know how to use it. It's, user friendly for those of us that get it. That being said, the way the state does it, again, under SAPA, is you have a portal. Here, the portal is an email. You submit your comments on regulations. And what the state does is it collects it, it's a repository, and then you take that and you literally, and I do this, you literally cut and paste, re-import the body of the verbatim, the body of the email into a document called the findings document that you then put online, and it's absolutely available to everybody. You take away who said it, you take away email addresses, but the comment itself is absolutely there, and it's a running document. It's a document you add to all the time. It would be posted on the website, and anyone can access it. You can't add to it, but you can access it. And the way we did that on purpose, and this was one of the things that I thought was a good idea, and you can be mad at me if you want to, but to have it funneled that way, because that's worked for the state. I've done that before, and it doesn't take away the right to anybody to comment. The exact comment will be pasted in, and then there is a response to that comment. The way you do it is you have your finding statement, and here's, okay, 17 people wrote comments about this. Here are the 17 comments. This is the response. Here's the next one. Here are the comments. This is the response. So you have one comprehensive document that is absolutely transparent and foilable if anybody wants it. One of the other issues with the Google Doc is that it's not, and Gary, you can shake your head at me, but the document was going to be maintained by the consultant. That's not foilable, and we wanted it to be transparent, and we wanted.
It's still a problem, because he also admitted he was gonna adulterate the comments by taking them out of context.
Right.
In his own comment earlier.
So what I want, so what this
No.
does
Yes.
is, this keeps everything together, it keeps everything in one document, and it takes away any of the intimations that anyone is playing around with the language, that anyone is doing anything wrong with the language. If Marilyn puts something in, and that entire comment gets lifted, and it's put in here, everybody can see it. They can't see us from Maryland, but they can see the comment.
Well,
So that's
so
really the process that every state agency uses. So I figured we could use that here, because I can tell you there are, and I'm not being ageist, but there are a lot of folks in a different generation that cannot access Google Docs, don't have computers, don't use Google Docs. How are they going to get this to get comments to people? They'd have to email it anyway. So this just puts everything in one document.
so the Google Doc can do that and automate things, so it's not so labor intensive. And Jared, maybe you can fill in
I know how
on
to
the
use
detail.
Google Docs.
It happened.
I think there's also a difference maybe in terminology, Google Doc versus Google Form.
No,
They're both part of the Google suite.
the Google Drive, I appreciate what it means.
All you have to do is.
But the Google Drive is like a disk drive, right? Whereas a Google Doc is something that can live on your disk drive. And a Google Form is something that you submit and it automatically populates a spreadsheet. There's no need to copy and paste things because it happens automatically. It takes user error out of the collection process.
So just to keep like conversation smooth, please rely on the mayor to call on people.
And also, I
At
do
this
want to
point-
correct something, a majority vote is required to table a motion without killing it.
No,
So,
it's not,
yes,
not
it
a
is.
simple
I just
majority.
want, I
It
just
isn't.
want, I just want the two sources, Ben.
No, I have a book that I read, and it's an official book, and it says you need 4/5. So, I don't know what you're
And
looking at.
As chair,
But-
I just reviewed it, I am presiding officer,
Well, you're gonna, like you've done before, you're gonna violate every rule of
roll
procedure
call
that you
vote on
want
the
to.
original motion to use
Yeah.
the Google form situation.
Well, we have,
Trustee Raymond?
wait, we have, public conversation, now that we're doing a motion.
Then
So
motion
now
to
the
table.
now the public
Can we
can,
table this?
discuss.
Yeah.
You're not gonna let the, oh, I thought you loved
They're gonna have a
public
chance to
discussion.
motion anyway.
I thought you liked public discussion.
So you're gonna violate rules of
No,
procedure?
actually, you're already in
There's no
violation,
violation.
10 minutes past, but
No, we're not.
is there a motion to table?
Yes.
Need a second?
That's illegal.
Uh,
Not allowed.
all in favor of tabling the motion?
Lack of transparency, lack of
Opposed?
democracy, that's who you are, Frank.
Okay, it's three,
Nay.
I mean,
No.
3-0 to
Oh my
1,
God, do I
or,
need to
wait,
make a
did you
motion?
vote no, or?
Yeah, voting no, Frank, because it's, what you're doing is illegitimate.
It's 3
It's
to 2.
illegitimate.
And
And
according,
I'll send you, and I'll post on the website where Roger says you need 4/5, okay? And then you can pretend you're.
you want to
you're not
postpone a
following.
motion until sometime later, move to table the motion. Motion may be taken from the table after
I
one
don't know
hour
what
of
you're
business has been
reading from,
conducted.
Frank.
From staff.senecu.edu.
I
One would
have
assume
the
they have Robert's
official-
rules down there.
I bothered to buy the official,
Board does not follow Robert's rules of
right, that's true too.
Which-
We don't.
When it said, okay, the village board does not follow Robert's rules of procedure, I'm reading from your rules of procedure.
That's right,
Wait, let me finish, please.
sorry.
It does talk about motions and resolutions require a majority vote to be approved, that's all it says. So
Right.
any motion would require a majority vote,
Right. So
which means
there's
a
no,
motion to table would
there's no-
require a majority vote,
there's
not a
no,
4/5.
there's no, provision for tabling.
It's a motion. All it says is motions and resolutions require a majority vote to be approved. That was what everyone voted on.
The motion is tabled. Now we are at the point where, because we've exceeded the 2-hour mark, we do go to a public comment session based on the rules of procedure. Up to 30 minutes for this section, and the normal 3 minutes per person on any topic. If you want to talk about the form usage or whatnot, that would have been the 92nd thing that you've heard about, feel free. But you have 3 minutes to speak. If you're on Zoom, would like to speak, now would be a good time to raise your hand. Let's go to Keith Lewis first. Why the hell not?
Keith Lewis, 38 East High Street, Ballston Spa, New York. Addressing narratives with facts is essential for fostering well-informed village stakeholders and ensuring that discussions are grounded in reality. Facts provide a foundation for understanding truth. Factual information helps ensure that discussions are based on objective truths rather than misinformation. When people have access to accurate information, they're better equipped to make informed decisions. And this is particularly important in areas such as village public policy, where decisions can have significant consequences. But under your leadership, Frank, narratives are the norm, while facts are regularly missing or completely ignored. We saw many examples tonight, but another great example is the way you've attempted to eliminate the Zoning Advisory Committee and hijack zoning law while pretending to have the village's best interests in mind. The fact is, you did not have the best interests of the village in mind, Frank, when you fought to force the residents to accept a Walmart supercenter on the village border, which would have had the potential to decimate our downtown and destroy our ability to drive anywhere. The fact is, you and your family have used your political position to bypass village and town codes so that you can line your own pockets. When your family built 2 apartment buildings on Saratoga Avenue and the building inspectors refused to sign off on occupancy, your family said, "We aren't dividing the property into 2 lots. That way, anyone else would have been required to do." Instead, you demanded and received a variance, allowing you and your family profits that others would not have ever received. The fact is, you and your family promised landscaping improvements that were written into the approval you received for Mohegan Hills development to make up for disruptions you caused near Brookside Museum. However, you have not fulfilled those promises years later and refused to make good on them. Additionally, the fact is your family's for-profit Mohegan Hills apartment complex is not paying the required water and sewage fees for complexes of 90 or more units, which the nonprofit Doubleday Woods is paying. This subsidy has likely cost the village over $100,000 that could have been used for much needed improvements to our infrastructure. These are all facts that should concern anyone who cares about the village. You, Frank, along with board members Bernadette and Mary, who have both shown they will not stand up for laws by refusing to recognize two state laws surrounding the village organizational meeting, will no doubt refuse to listen to the community and instead pass legislation that is contrary to our wishes. The Zoning Advisory Committee is not done with their work, and you do not have the right to interfere with that work. Furthermore, this board should not grant your exclusive rights to process the village's wishes through you, so that the flow goes directly through you. And lastly, Gina, you and your brother have terrorized people in this village for years, long before I even knew where our local government was housed. And although I believe it
What's up, Dave?
Well, that was rude, and I just want to point out that your sister just gave the finger to another member of the public.
Because she
So-
did a hand gesture at me. Did you see
She
that?
asked, she asked you to be quiet.
No, she didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, she didn't.
Oh, yes, he did.
How about,
I saw
hey,
Who are you?
guys, please, please, just
Unbelievable.
please.
And of
Everybody,
course, she'll get away with it because she's your sister. She can do whatever she wants in the meeting, can't she?
we are in public comment. No, please, stop talking during meetings.
I'm about to send the entire public out. If you want to participate, you'll be doing it by Zoom, everybody. Is that all right?
I just wanna go.
We're at public comment, so
I do. Yeah, you are a little closer.
Jerry.
24 Chapman Street, Jared Eclucci. On zoning, first off on the timeline, if we're anticipating the remainder of our local laws being ready by September, why are we forcing the code, the zoning code, the bulk of it, to be completed by July 15th? Second, if I understood the timeline laid out correctly, comment period ends the 21st. By May 1st, the legal review is due to the board. That leaves a week and a half to incorporate the feedback from the public into the draft code. That does not seem sufficient to me. Lastly, on the zoning topic, the form, I think again, there's a little bit of a disconnect here between what a form is, what a doc is, and how those things function. I would also appreciate in the future hearing constructive feedback from the leader of our village rather than same people's work product sucks. Not a very good leadership move. Now, on the budget, I just wanted to first thank you, Carla, for providing some clarity on motion K, why we would need to exceed the property tax and why we need that public hearing approved now. The issue I have with it is that if I understand the mayor's narrative, the balanced budget is only balanced if we increase the property tax cap. So either the narrative from the mayor that the balanced budget is a balanced budget is incorrect, or we must pass a property tax cap increase. Now, that was not the way motion K was framed when it was voted on. So I think that that needs to be cleared up a little bit. Thank you.
Actually, no, Jared, just to be clear, the additional money from tax cap exceeding is going directly to capital planning in a line that you'll see it's the exact amount that you're over on tax cap in that situation.
So you just, if I can read your narrative here, it is a fully balanced budget that would raise taxes 2% beyond the
Correct.
state's property tax.
A balanced budget means that revenues and expenditures on all the lines total to zero. That's a balanced budget.
With a raise on the tax cap.
It's a balanced budget.
With a raise on the tax cap.
Jared, it's a
Yes,
balanced budget.
I think we agree here.
No,
Guys,
I think it's
stop
clean as a
fighting
good
back
one.
and forth, honestly, guys, this is a little out of hand tonight. Let's continue, still in public
Hi,
comment.
Liz, how are you?
Oh, fine. So,
Liz Cormos, 89 High. I'd like to talk about the motion that was made approving JH. During this time, I started looking at, the company, and I came across something very interesting. On here, you can't see it, of course. It says Antonio Rossi works at Ross Blacktop and Brick Paving, which above is a part of JH Property Services. Is Antonio Rossi your brother?
Antonio Rossi is my brother, yes.
And you did not recuse yourself?
I have no idea if he's taking part in it. He's not a principal.
He works for the company doing paving.
He's not a principal.
I think, according to the ethics, you should have revealed that your brother works for the company that you were proposing.
What is his position if he's not a principal?
He is a laborer.
He's just a worker? He's not a manager?
Well, then why is Ross Brick Paving and Blacktop right next to
Says that
JH?
Ross Paving is a division of JH?
Yeah, he's part of the team as described by JH.
I don't even deal with it, so
I can answer it if I'm allowed to speak.
if you would want the answer, go ahead. Yeah.
JH uses the Ross Paving name because it's familiar and been in business for 3 generations. So he was playing off the use of the name. My brother Tony is a laborer and an employee of JH.
Did he sell the company to JH?
No.
Does he own Ross Paving?
No,
He doesn't
it's
own
not a
it?
company, it's not a company anymore. He's using the name because of familiarity. Ross Paving is no longer.
I still think that you were benefiting your brother by having this contract, since he does the paving work from everything I've seen on Facebook. And you should have revealed that, and you should have withheld the vote on this issue. Thank you.
Disagree on that? Okay, Gary?
So Gary Stevenson, 45 West High Street. I wanted to bring to the attention of the board that currently, at least the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals and possibly the Historic District Commission are in violation of New York State open meeting law. The law specifically reads, if records that are scheduled to be discussed during an open meeting are available under FOIL or consist of a proposed resolution, law, rule, regulation, policy, or any amendment thereto, the record is required to be made available to the extent practicable online at least 24 hours before the meeting and in response to a request to inspect or copy prior to or during the meeting. Specifically, I'm referring to the need to have draft minutes that are to be discussed and approved and at the respective meeting to be available to the public at least the 24 hours previous. Sorry. So we'll get there. I would respectfully request that the village board and mayor require these boards and commissions to promptly comply with the law. Thank you.
So you should turn that statement in today or tomorrow.
Is that what I need to do?
Well-
It'd be great tonight, so
Yeah, but it's not required. The
it'd be
policy's 3
great
days.
tonight to be respectful to our clerk.
Okay.
So if you have a copy, please send,
I have a
she'll take
handwritten
it.
copy. Is that sufficient?
Tomorrow should be fine.
Okay. I'll type it up for tomorrow then.
We need to look at that, I don't think that's fair,
It's
honestly,
totally,
to the
but she-
clerk.
What is it?
She's
No,
not
no,
done
no,
with the
I just
minutes.
mean in the sense of like her work, she,
She's got 2 weeks to do
Yeah,
that.
she got 2 weeks.
I'm.
Anybody else?
One obstacle after another.
Hi, Karen Evanarius, 9 Church Ave. First, I'd like to say thank you to the Ballston Spa Fire Department and surrounding areas. We had, unfortunately, a customer overload one of our washers and burnt, smoked out a belt, and they responded, and it was wonderful, and we appreciate them. There was no damage besides our washer, but we wanted to give a shout out to them.
Also, as you guys know, I've been at a lot of the ZAC meetings and kind of looked at online. I just haven't had a lot of time to take it all in. There's a lot to look at. I know as a person who works for a public company, public school district, we use a lot of Google Docs, like you said, Google Docs, Google Forms, all these things, the Excel sheets, and I know you can shut it down for comments and I know there's been a lot of controversy all on this board. And I'm not saying what to do, but sometimes you can shut things down and just so people can view it and make it a viewer only to maybe to appease. I also feel like there's such a problem on the board and I get everyone's opinions and that maybe there's like this is the teacher in me coming out, but the restorative circle where maybe you guys get together and talk about what's going on. It seems like it's a vicious cycle every single meeting and it bleeds into the public and it bleeds into Facebook and social media and it just doesn't give a good look when I go to work and a lot of other people are saying, oh my God, what's going on in the village of Ballston Spa? It's sad for everybody here. I think we all feel the same way. We all can be upset and mad, but I think we all need to handle ourselves in a better way and maybe talk about it and hopefully come up with a better thing. But the zoning, I feel like there's a meeting coming up, there's no going forward. I do think a Google form, my opinion, would be a good thing if maybe Carla or someone had that. And then it does come out in an Excel spreadsheet that's very nice, not telling you that. But I think there's a lot of people out there who are concerned about sending emails in and having their email address to people so they can see who they are. I know older people have expressed that to us.
The form collected that information, just so you know. That was one of the issues too.
Yep, so I know, just not trying to cause any problems, I'm just saying what I've experienced and what I've heard from people in our laundromat. There's sign up for the next meeting and some of the elder people who are like, I didn't even know there was a zoning thing coming up. And they were concerned and I said, well, I'm not sure how you're submitting information, whether it's email or there's a Google form, but there's gonna be some sort of something. I don't know if there's gonna be on the village website how that meeting's gonna be run on April 3rd, 5th, I can't remember the date.
Yeah, 5, 6 months.
Yep, so I just think we need to look into that and share out that information to people, because I don't think it's been as transparent since their last meeting in the end of January, early February.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would argue that like letters could also be received if somebody isn't able to use email and it can be scanned.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, again, just to be clear on Google Forms, when you get to
Google
narrative, no, it's a Google form in this case. What gets released, you push it over to an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet, and it's a nightmare to deal with. To even get the narratives out of it, I have to literally change the headings and widen and expand and all these weird things just to get the full responses, and then trying to print it if you have other responses.
We have people who have a lot of experience doing
Yeah,
it, and it seems to work great.
including me, and it's a nightmare. It is an absolute nightmare.
Not for everybody.
Hannah, so.
Thank you. Excuse me, Mike Iacolucci, 3 Encore Drive. I'm sorry that I did not read tonight's agenda more carefully than I did. With respect to the scheduled public hearings for April 14th, I ask that the board think about changing the order of those 2 public hearings. It seems to me that before the public is able to comment on whether exceeding the property tax cap is appropriate, it might be helpful for the public to talk about, see the actual budget that's being proposed. So again, I just, personally, I think it would make a lot more sense to reverse the order of those 2. And secondly, with respect to zoning and the zoning advisory committee, clearly there are lots of opinions around lots of things. If I understand the timeline correctly, and again, I've not seen it, but I think the timeline that was described starts with a goal end date. And to me, if that goal end date can be pushed later, into 1 month later or 2 months later, all those timelines can be adjusted as mandated by state law to reflect that. So you all, I know, are supposed to be part-time people. You've got a lot in front of you. The budget must be done in a fairly short period of time. It seems to me that you could take advantage of an opportunity for more time to think about, look at, and hear input from the public on the zoning issues. Thank you.
Just to be clear, I was cognizant of the order when I had set the agenda on this and did look into this, and as Carla is indicating here, I did have the right order on that. It's the way it's supposed to line up, because first you have to look at the ability to do it in the first place, and then you talk about actually doing it possibly inside the public hearing that follows that one. I get what you're saying, Mike. I'm not disagreeing that it seems strange, but we looked at this a little bit to make sure the order was right. This is one of those don't shoot the messenger moments, so sorry to tell you, okay? Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
From what, Anna Stanko, 32 Kent Street. I'm very glad to see that Kelly Park is actually in your plan. I would like to, wish it was a little sooner. I guess I would just like to mention a couple of things over there, though. There is a tree that was down the last time I was there, a very, very large tree that could be considered dangerous. I would ask that the board
Talk to Jen too to make sure it's on her list.
take a look
too.
at that.
Yep.
There's a very odd pet cemetery type thing also in the back of there that is very odd and
I know.
should not be there, in my opinion. Oh, yes, there's a big
It's some kind of
memorial,
memorial thing back there, yeah.
pet cemetery
Like
type
maternity,
Stephen
it's not
King
where it came
shit
from.
going on. If somebody could, the flower boxes, I don't know whether any Boy Scouts ever come to you to say, do they need a project? The flower boxes are literally, I don't know, they're all over the place. So there are a few things that I would ask that the board at least look at before spring of 2026 for Kelly Park.
Well, just, not to interrupt you, just remember, right now, Park and Tree with Studio A's help is going to be looking at things that we could put in for that grant if we want to move forward with it. I think that's due in July, the application for it. So if your group wants to brainstorm with Park and Tree, it would probably be a benefit ultimately,
Okay.
make sure we had some good coordination about things to fix in there and talk with Caitlin and her group, for sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
And right. The only other thing is, county, I put my budget in, I meet with the budget officer, the budget takes it, I do not meet with supervisors, any 21 of them. The budget officer takes care of everything at the county, apparently that stuff's done at the state, this is not unusual. And does anybody else feel like we're watching Groundhog Day? Again and again and again, thank you.
Thank you. What else? Right, you can say.
I can say, thank you.
Speak
I
up.
appreciate that. I will speak loud as I can do that. Couple things on a lighter note. The task force, the events task force is having the Easter egg hunt on April 12th. Is that how I remember? At the Milton Town Center, Community Center. Okay, almost. We have all sorts of ads on Facebook, and it seems like everybody is depending on Facebook for all kinds of information, so let's look at that. If anybody has any rabbits, because of the bird flu, we don't have enough eggs, so we need rabbit eggs, which is what we use for Easter anyway. But I think we've got enough eggs. I also want to mention that on May 11th, we are having our second annual Hope for Kids event in Kelly Park. And we'd love to have it beautiful by then, but who knows. For that event, we'll be doing the gingerbread characters again. We should have approximately 200 new ones going in there at a whopping cost to the village of about $200. Because my friends at Curtis Lumber were nice enough to donate 150 feet of 1x8 lumber which was enough to get that done, and about $200 worth of paint, exterior paint, so that we can actually have them out there and not have them fade. And boy, I went through, it's up now, I gotta take it down, up down, I'll take care of that. So again, the cost is gonna be about $250 for that whole program. I have my paintbrushes here for kids. I've already been in contact with the schools about it. They're on board. I'm looking for anybody else that can have anything to do with child abuse, abduction, and trafficking. Hopefully not doing it. We want to bring the kids and make them aware of what goes on with that, how they can prevent it. And it's a serious issue. I already got Tedesco online, I got Mary Beth online. We are gonna have a great event this year. We have a little more planning involved. So that was the report that I didn't give to you. I apologize, because that would have been her liaison report. The other thing I want to say is we do depend way too much on Facebook, because on Facebook, I have heard this year that the sliding hill was only attended by 100 to 200 people, and I have 4 different angles of pictures that I can show you, which really scares me with kids. And, well, I took some of the
No,
liaison
I'm
time.
sorry, you gotta use your time.
All right.
Push it.
But let's stay away from Facebook and the comments and the negativity in that, please. I would appreciate it. This needs to go to Terry.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Those are my comments.
Yeah, here. Anybody else?
Terry. Is it from Gary?
Kristen has raised her hand.
Okay.
Hi there, Kristen Icalucci, 24 Chapman Street. Just, curious about the decision to use our village lawyer's time to correlate emails versus using the Google form that was voted on by the ZAC. I find it interesting that that is the decision that is made when we all know that the village lawyer has a lot on her plate, a lot of laws and a lot of important things that she has to draft for us. I just am curious why that decision was made to use her time to be the go-between when that really was the purpose of the ZAC. And I also am curious to know that the reason is for security and for transparency. And the answer is that those emails can be foilable if there was any doubt or question whether those emails were received and put into the considerations for the consultant. How long does it take to foil a request? Would that be done after the zoning code would be voted on and the laws would already be in place? So then it would really be a moot point to really know and have true transparency if the answer is to foil those emails. So I would just like the board to consider using the Google form that was voted on by the ZAC so that the entire members of the public, myself included, we can all see that our comments are there and were included and taken into consideration before the zoning code is in place. Thanks.
Before I'm gonna let you in a sec. Let me just, anybody else? Seeing none, seeing none. Okay, 15 minutes according to the rules of procedure for board response only. However, I did want to defer to you on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to, and I won't take your 15 minutes up.
Thank you.
But I just wanted, I think there's confusion. I'm not the repository of anything. I was explaining the process. So the idea was so you wouldn't have to foil. That's why we were putting it on a sheet that was going to be on the website. The whole idea was so, because FOIL does take a long time because there's other things going on. The idea was to have it available for everybody on a regular basis, on a running document, on the website.
The plan is to have somebody redact the heading basically of name and email address. Is that what your idea was?
No, you literally just take the
Comment itself,
comments and put it
paste
in.
it.
And I need those anyway, eventually, because we're gonna put them in the code. So that, I mean, I think there was confusion there, but I'm not doing the cutting and pasting.
The most expensive collator or correlator or whatever it's called, ever, otherwise.
So
Anyone
it was
else?
to avoid FOIL. It was better than FOIL. I was trying to be more transparent, and apparently that is going nowhere.
You're better than Reynolds, right? You're saying.
Actually, that's exactly what the ZAC charter requires of this process. It says to make all documents available upon request. So
Okay, so
it
I
was
was-
Matt Erkeline who violated that charter principle as well. But with this public comment, the Google form can operate in the exact same way and be public and keep necessary information private.
It was not originate from any village staff, correct? So we wouldn't have the ongoing access to it for the FOIL if after
It's
this
not a public
process.
record.
It's not a, yes, that is the issue, it's not a public record. So this is the way to ensure that we could provide.
If someone wants to summarize the full documents that are available by the village, it's their right to do so, but we need a location where all documents are available in terms of comments from folks.
Right.
If somebody wants to say, okay, we got the following from section 1 or whatever, the breakdown is there, and here's what I gleaned from those different ones or whatever, great, okay, that's great, but at the end of the day, we need the source document to be accessible.
Yeah, that will be accessible through the Google
But
form.
it's not.
It is. And
Who originated it?
the
Who originated it? Who made
ZAC.
it?
I'm not on
It's
that.
not an employee
I'm
of
not on
the
that
It's
village.
okay, you know what, documents, as we've been told repeatedly, documents in process that aren't complete aren't public anyway, they need to
No,
be
but
completed.
it's not
and
originated
then it
from
makes
any
public.
public employee, so therefore
The
would
ZAC
not have this promise of being able to FOIL.
The
This is
ZAC
honestly
is a
silly.
publicly appointed
Isn't the
body.
ZAC a public entity?
It is.
They're not public employees though. There's not
That's all right.
coming from a public.
They're-
employee.
they're-
I don't.
They are
Yeah,
charged
so
with
emails.
managing this process, and they did it with the last public hearing and all those
Ben,
comments.
they don't have
There
village
was no problem.
emails either, and therefore they would be putting their entire email address box up for FOIL possibilities too. It's probably not a wise move for anybody's sake. Send it to the village where it's controlled by a actual FOIL process that's, let's say, a little bit more restrained for everybody's sake
It's
here.
been fine right up to now, they've been using Google Docs the whole time, anyway. And public entities, schools use it.
Do you have anything?
No, beyond what I already said.
Mary?
I don't.
Ben, Sean?
One thing I was thinking, Ray, if you want to reach and include more kids is, and it's a little different theme, but it's related, is child mental health and child gun safety. Those things impact, just millions of people every year.
Those groups.
Those are issues, just like you're addressing.
You're adding issues to.
Well, it's a
I thought it was
suggestion,
groups.
yeah, it's a thought that, you just expand
Yeah, we
your
do.
focus.
We
Because-
do include child mental health,
Okay, great, great,
and social services, all that.
okay.
So hopefully they'll have reps there.
I'm happy to hear that, thank you.
All I would say is I would encourage our board members who nominated the ZAC members who have decided not to fulfill their charter and attend ZAC meetings, to find replacements by our next meeting. If they're not going to continue to attend meetings with the majority of the ZAC, and hopefully you'll have some candidates by next meeting.
The last thing I'd just like to mention is, if you have public vouchers that are not being used, that's like a big deal, and we might want to publicize that somehow. Like, it's this huge, housing affordability crisis,
Does it originate with the county?
and,
John is the one that is our administrator.
yeah, so if that's the case, I'm sure there's a huge number of people out there who'd be very interested in taking advantage.
Well, I
of that.
think, is Jim Mastriani coming to do a presentation, Jennifer? So he'll be here to bring that up too, and what was it, 45 days?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's in May, it'll be at the May, the first May meeting.
Okay, so coming in May. Anything else? Can I get a motion that vouchers be audited and the meeting be adjourned at 9:44 p.m.? Trustee Price Bush. Trustee Fandesa, discussion, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Oh, two voices. Opposed?
Sorry, it's like Brady.
We'll see you in 3 weeks.
You wanna stay long? Okay, all right, bring it on.
I haven't seen you at the pool, Jennifer. We haven't seen you at the pool in a little while, at the Y. Oh, we're just going on the wrong day.
Okay. Hey, how's it going?